Rising steps up and throws to the end zone, and Dixon is in. Touchdown.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Here's Gordon again. Jump cut in the hole. Bust it to the outside. And Gordon diving for the end zone. Touchdown, Oklahoma State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Now the throw across the middle. That was caught. And on a broken tackle, J.P. Richardson. Touchdown.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And here's Green. He's going to keep it. And Green breaks loose. Garrett Green across midfield and forced out of bounds at about the 25 by D. Winters.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Lance Leipold's group with the 14-zip lead on Matt Campbell's Iowa State team. And Jalen Nolan is out to the races. Down the sideline. Noel tripped up inside the 5.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
R.J. Harvey, direct snap. He keeps it. And now UCF has a touchdown to start the ball game.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Thursday, games tonight in college football. Big 12 teams playing tonight in college football. And then, of course, TCU, Stanford tomorrow night, and then a large bucket of games in the conference, including all the games that you are interested around the country on Saturday. And there's some top 25 games. We'll get to that, including that list of a couple of teams inside the Big 12. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina are on the set. David Smoak, that's me. I'm here on 365 Sports, and we appreciate your time. If you wouldn't mind, right off the top, if you have not subscribed to us before, please do. And then also hit the like button if you don't mind. We're going to hear from Brett Yormark, the commissioner of the Big 12, with a couple of comments to Ari Temkin of the Big 12 Network this morning on TuneIn Radio. We appreciate Ari for sharing that audio. West Virginia AD Ren Baker, what a weekend it is. By the way, Craig, they canceled classes among the county schools. They have not yet canceled the classes on campus. They're waiting for E. Gordon Gee to do that, and that's something Ren Baker says will be interesting. Now, I asked him about that. I thought it was the West Virginia classes, but it's county schools because of traffic. But as of about 2 hours ago, it was not the campus or classes at West Virginia.
I think you had that right the first time, right? It's E. Gordon Gee.
Yeah, E. Gordon Gee, I'm sorry.
I think you corrected yourself to the wrong way of pronouncing that.
Because that's the way I am.
Yeah, that's E. Gordon Gee. But, yeah, that came down yesterday that I had seen that headline towards the end of the show. And shout-out to our friend of the show, Coos, a massive West Virginia fan, does a really good job in his own right covering the Mountaineers. And he sent me a link last night. I meant to respond back to him to say thank you. But, yeah, I mean, I saw that, and I thought that's what that meant. But there's still, I guess, some holdouts in terms of making this weekend all about Pat McAfee and West Virginia and hosting Penn State. So, come on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, school, we can play school at any time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Cardell Jones, said that a long time ago, and others have said as much or close to that. But no, I mean, that's, whatever. That's cool, though. It's fun that there's even that conversation happening. It's obviously a very big deal in Morgantown, and there is a big crowd expected, so they're having to make some citywide decisions on how to handle all that, and that just tells you that it's going to be a massive next couple of days in Morgantown, and I can only imagine what it'll be like if they can somehow pull that upset on Saturday.
Well, the Ren Baker interview today at 5 from earlier today when I recorded him, and he does get into the Pat McAfee and other former players, Pat White, Slayton, among others, who who really kind of got a little disjointed from the athletic department at West Virginia and what Ren Baker and company are doing. And that will be at 5 o'clock. We will hear from Brett Yormark, but look what Kim Coulter did. He ordered the 365 Sports logo from us. I sent it to him. It's been a couple of months ago. He has a great setup outside of Jones Stadium in Lubbock, and he put our logo on his tent. That, of course, the number one Big 12 show on YouTube, Brett. Kim, thank you very much for that and what he does with North Star Funding. He is such a generous guy to what we do, the gift cards and stuff he did for my brother. And now we have that on his tent outside of their tailgate area for Saturday.
That's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible just gesture by Kim, and an incredible show of support for this show. And he's been along for, I don't know how long, like the majority of the time we've been on, right? Like, I don't remember when he first popped up, but he's been along for the ride for a while and has been incredibly generous, as you said. And I know I'm very familiar with the tech scene, so I know there's going to be a lot of people walking by and having fun coming up on Saturday, and hopefully seeing that. And for those that don't know, going, hey, what's that? And maybe joining the family. But
Yep.
Kim's definitely a member, and that's just an incredible thing for him to do. So yeah, really appreciate that.
We do appreciate it. And by the way, if you watch the show, you now don't feel any pressure to put it. Hell, we got to put it on our tent that we have around the street over at McLean Stadium inside the Brazos parking area. Big 12 tonight. Here's the entire schedule, but obviously there are games tonight among the Big 12 teams, including UCF on ESPN Plus tonight, hosting New Hampshire. Colorado in a game on ESPN, 8 o'clock against North Dakota State. 22nd ranked KU against Lindenwood. That game's in Kansas City. And 12th ranked Utah. The Utes, that's two of the new schools entering the Big 12 playing tonight. They play Southern Utah. That game a little bit later on at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's going to be a very busy night, and the weeknight games, I think, are going to become far more commonplace now that the new TV deals and the new realignment and all that starts to come into play. So I was looking this first week, there's a bunch of weeknight games, and so that's fun to have a bunch of options, not just on Saturday or even just Friday night, but to have some Thursday night action. That's not just like a one-off game or a lower level game that doesn't really garner a whole lot of interest, except for those that probably gamble or are fans of those schools. But like tonight, for example, is going to be like everybody's involved basically, because there's so many games, and you pointed out just from that league alone. But I mean, Missouri, they're borderline top 10 team. They're in action tonight. So it's going to be a very busy night. And I know there's, NC State, as we'll get into. But, yeah, it's the weekend's getting started here in a matter of hours.
Jarrett, the graphic that includes the top 25 teams, and two of them, of course, I mentioned with what KU and Utah are doing in their games tonight at home, Western Carolina and NC State, the 24th ranked team on ACC Network. And the SEC Network has 11th ranked Missouri, the Tigers, and Eli Drinkwitz hosting Murray State.
Yeah, I don't think you're on like crazy upset watch or anything, but it's great to see some of these games and just to have the options that we have in front of us the next 3 days. And I'm very interested in looking at Missouri. They're a team that had a really successful run last year, brings back a lot of components. Of course, you've got, Luther Burden as your headliner there, and Brady Cook and so on and so forth, but it'd be good to get our first glimpse of them. NC State's obviously got interesting change at quarterback, and a team who's right in the midst of all that ACC talk and where do they fit in, but they're a very good program, so excited to see their new look. And obviously there's a handful of Big 12 games that we'll get into as well that have a lot of interesting storylines as well.
Well, we will. One of the things about Colorado and North Dakota State, I saw this from Guy Haberman. He covers that area. Paul Catalina with us on 365 Sports. North Dakota State FCS levels do not have helmet communication. But teams were allowed to do that if they play somebody from the FBS. North Dakota State has the game with Colorado, and they did invest in that technical equipment, Paul, for one game, despite this being the only game against an FBS team they have this year.
Yeah.
That's a commitment.
Yeah, it is absolutely a commitment that they have there. And, I'm kind of with Craig. Like, there's not there's not like a whole lot of games tonight that you're going to be like, hey, let's make sure that we're by the TV and watch them. But it would be good to get going. And I also think you can learn a lot about teams in these games because you see how they approach them. And then you also, I don't think you see strength so much in some of these games as you do weaknesses. And I learned that from watching Baylor last year where, they were a team that was going to struggle. And when they played teams that they should have handled, they didn't handle them. And then, or by the time they started handling him, you'd already seen like, man, they're really getting after the passer here. Like, that shouldn't be a problem. And then it's going to make you worried.
Did y'all even pick up on the use of helmet communications last week? Did that even dawn on y'all while watching the games that there was any real difference?
The only thing I thought about that was different for me, and I have the sound down, so they might have been talking about it, was the fact that they had the 2-minute break at halftime. That was the first thing that I was, that's different. Yeah,
that was a little different and something we knew was coming. We just didn't know like how that would fit into everything. But yeah, I mean, not that it was ever going to be something that was in your face and that you really. No, like it's not like they have the alternate channel where you're listening in on the helmet cam, but I just wondered in terms of like pace and things if that was notable to anybody. But it's only the first week, and so I commend North Dakota State for going and splurging and taking advantage of this opportunity to have helmet comms, especially in a big opportunity in a big game on a big stage. I mean, it's one thing to go and play a team that's a level above you in terms of conference affiliation, in terms of money. It's another thing to play one of those teams and their head coach is Deion Sanders, and the whole world's going to be watching because they either love him and believe that Colorado's rising underneath his watchful eyes, or they are absolutely watching tonight to laugh their asses off because Colorado starts 0-1 and loses to FCS North Dakota State. So that's a really interesting game for a lot of people because you love them or you love to hate them. I feel like is what Colorado is right now.
And they kind of like that.
Yeah, and they embrace that, and I don't think they care one bit whatsoever. I don't think they know how to handle probably being liked by everybody. I think they need that chip on their shoulder, honestly. But, yeah, I think that's smart on North Dakota State's part. You got that opportunity. Go and take advantage of it, and see if it helps you out and maybe pulling a big upset.
Yeah, I said on Triple Option earlier, Steven asked me about, like, the watchability factor of this game. I said I think it's kind of high because – and this is an interesting opponent for them because what we know about North Dakota State is they're going to be very fundamental. Like, that's how they win games is they block, they tackle, they execute, they don't make little mistakes. And when they're playing other FCS teams, then they can, have those big play factors. But for them to beat a team like Colorado and hang in it, it's about making no mistakes where Colorado will make a lot of. And Colorado was not good at fundamentals last year in any stretch of the thing. They're really great at, holy crap, what was that? They've got some skill players, but in the nitty gritty of, the heart of football, they were really, really, really bad at it. And North Dakota State will show us at least a little bit if they're going to be better at it.
All right, before we get to the Your Mark comment, and Ari did a great job, and he never brought up Yukon. He didn't really have to. It's about men's basketball, then eventually football. We'll get to that. The offensive coordinator at BYU last night saying that they have named a starter. They know who their starter is. And he also added that the quarterback who didn't get the starting job handled the news professionally and with class. I asked Jake Hatch, who, of course, covers Utah and also covers BYU, and he says the speculation, at least from what he gets, is that it is Retzlaff. Now, that would, and again, I don't know what kind of young man he is. I'm sure he's a great kid. But if it handled it professionally and with class, that could be both. It could be Bohannon, but I would think that the person who didn't get the job, or at least starter, would be very, very disappointed.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what you fought for all the way up until the day before the game or 2 days before the game. So, yeah, you didn't get the job promotion you wanted. You're going to be disappointed, right? You didn't get the girl you wanted. You're going to be disappointed. So, yeah, you didn't win the starting quarterback job. Of course you're going to be disappointed. But, it's good to hear whoever that was handled it. And, yeah, it could be either one because Gary Bohannon's not the only one with class, I think, in that locker room. So, I'm sure if that was Jake Retzlaff, then he probably, was able to handle it well. But, Retzlaff played a lot for them last year. And Gary obviously had his time there at South Florida and eventually now on his third team and looking to become a starter once again. I don't know. I don't get a feel because it's just a little bit too far out there. And honestly, like the feelings coming out of Provo aren't that great to begin with. So I don't know if it really matters who their starting quarterback is because I think they're both going to play. And I think it's just going to be a matter of like who can play well enough to keep the job and not get replaced, at any moment during the course of a game, because it sounds like they don't have like two quarterbacks and both are great, or they've got two quarterbacks and neither one are really good. It sounds like it's somewhere kind of in the middle. So I think this is probably going to play itself out a little bit further. I don't think this is the last we've heard of them having more than one quarterback, but if I had to guess, I don't really need to do that. I don't know. If I'm just taking a guess, I would say it's Retzlaff, his familiarity with the system and whatnot. But if it was Gary, I would not be surprised, and I would be really excited for him if that was the case.
We don't have a tweet, and that's fine because we don't always have to do that. Real quickly, and then the SEC has officially approved player availability injury reports for football, men's, women's basketball, and baseball. They must be submitted 3 days before each football game, daily updates, and a final 90-minute before the game time report, too. Basketball and all the others have different the night before, I guess, in the day or moment before the game. If they don't or they're inaccurate, teams will be fined anywhere from $25,000 up to $100,000 in football.
Yeah, I mean, the SEC is going with the NFL approach, very much like what the pros do. And so that's just more of this sport and I guess on a wider level of just college athletics, starting to lean more into the pro model. And we know with football, that's not just a concern for smaller schools, but that's like the dream scenario, I think, for some big schools. And for pundits and observers and whatnot, I think that's the fear for some, and that's the future that you see if you're others. That's where we are headed, and it's going to be more like this. I mean, I'm not somebody that's a gambler, right? I'm just not a part of that crowd, but I definitely know there's plenty in the industry that cover that well and that do dabble and all that. It's just not something I've ever been all that familiar with or really super involved with. But this does scream to me of like, here you go, gambling crowd. Here's another bone from the college football community, because why else would anybody need injury reports, right? I mean, your opponent would love them and vice versa, but this is very much throwing a bone to the folks out in Las Vegas to make these kinds of things available like you do with the pros. So, yeah, for that side of things, that's great. And I think in general, just having that kind of clarity is cool. I think to have that information out there is a benefit for media and fans as well. So, yeah, I like that they're going that route, but this definitely screams that it's much more influential on the betting side than anything else.
No question. Try to make sure there's no funny business, but you're going to have the Bill Belichick's or some others in college football that will play that game. Now, Ari Temkin, who was a part of the show yesterday and a part of the Big 12 Radio Network on TuneIn, mentioned to us that he had Brett Yormark on the show. And so he sent me the clip of the interview, the audio file, and he did get into basketball. He did not mention specifically Yukon, but he didn't have to. Neither did Ari, and neither did Brett Yormark. And here's Brett Yormark's response.
Certainly the strength of the Big 12 at current is basketball. And historically, you've got a pretty good track record of, being successful in terms of creating revenue streams and monetizing basketball and your team does, and being around the sport as well as you have. So I've used the analogy of if you've got $10 and currently in college athletics, football is about 8.5 of the $10, which means basketball is about 50 cents or $1 of that. How much do you think, again, going to the $10 analogy in total, basketball is potentially worth of the $10 total?
Well, I can tell you this. I think it's a lot more, than what, the big distributors are investing in it today. Okay, and I've said that since the day I got here.
Yep.
Certainly, football drives the business, and I can't argue with you on that. But is basketball more valuable now than it's ever been, both men's and women's? Absolutely. And you saw what the NBA just did, and the WNBA in their recent TV deal, and I think that's indicative of the value of basketball. It's premium inventory, it's volume, and distributors want it, okay? And I think when we go back into the marketplace deal, we're going to have a lot of optionality. Because as I've said before, we might go back into the marketplace, bundling all of our sports like traditionally it's been done. or maybe we explore some type of bifurcation, if that makes sense. But at least we have the optionality. And I think basketball is worth a lot more, when you think about how it compares to football. And when I look at my overall viewership of what we deliver to our distribution platforms, it's closer to 30% of total viewership being basketball related. And I can tell you right now, we're not getting 30% on the dollar for basketball.
Does the conference need to add more basketball programs in order to maximize that revenue stream in 2030, 2031?
No, I don't think we need to go just basketball specific. When we think about realignment, let's talk about the four corners. We were very strategic about it. It was very data driven, why we felt the four corners would be valuable. Obviously, we like their markets, we like their brands, we like their fan bases, but they got us to be better in football. We got better in basketball, and we got better in Olympic sports. So I do look at things very holistically. Markets matter, athletic performance matters, fan base matters, media value matters. So when I think about expansion, as I have, obviously, I look at it from lots of different lenses, not just one in particular. Now, the value proposition might be weighted a little bit more in one area than another, but I look at it very holistically. And what does realignment do to drive value for our membership, or short-term and long-term? So do I need to hone in on basketball specifically? I don't necessarily feel I need to do that. But I do look at it very holistically, and basketball plays a significant role, no different than football and market and brand and fan base.
So that's we'll do the football answer from him in between some of the segments we have. But that was your mark. He never really denied anything. We know he's always like scratching something to find out if it has money underneath of it. Ari did a great job. Appreciate the audio from Ari and the Big 12 Radio Network.
Yeah, shout out to him for the interview and for sending that along to allow us to sit here and chat about it. I think that Brett Yormark is just doing his job, for one, and I can't blame him for that whatsoever, no matter how you feel about any potential combination or any potential entry or any potential avenue he's traveling down, leaning more towards basketball or what have you. I appreciate that he's aggressive, and I appreciate that he's, for the commissioners, maybe it gets annoying, all the ideas thrown at them, but I'd rather have that than just sit on your ass and not do anything like the league did for so long under different leadership.
For many years.
For a long time, and it cost them. So I love the aggressiveness, for one, and just the enthusiasm and the passion that he clearly has for trying to continuously improve this league in some way, and basketball seems like the most likely way to be able to do that outside of just the dream scenario where you're able to pluck away some ACC schools, right? And whatever combination of those there could be, although you're not in control of that timeline. You're a bit more in control of this scenario. I'm obviously somebody who's been on the record as more of a football fan, so for me, the Yukon thing doesn't scratch much of an itch for me at all. But from a basketball standpoint, I totally get it. I totally get why having Yukon in the league would be awesome for a variety of different reasons, from TV ratings to maybe even your TV deal. The part that's just very uncertain is that Yormark is clearly convinced that basketball is going to be worth more, but we don't know that. I mean, he sounds like as confident as a person can probably be, to the point that I believe he's being told that by people that matter, but there's no proof that that's actually going to be the case when the time comes. So that's the big question. Is he right on that? And if
is
so,
he pushing all his chips in the middle?
I mean, I don't know if everything's life or death like that, but I do think that he is obviously of a very strong belief that is going to be the case, or that is the case. Do the networks feel the same way? I think our friend John Kurtz, we mentioned Kuz at the top of the show, but another buddy of ours in the Big 12 circles, John Kurtz, he was talking about a conversation we were having about realignment. I caught part of his show, and he brought up, our feelings about just like the Yukon football part just doesn't do it for me. But he made a very valid point that because of the stunted add-on of football, based on the scenario that was laid out a couple of days ago, you're basically remember how I was saying, you're basically investing and hoping that Yukon football will be better at some point in time. But as he mentioned, and it's a very good point, if they're not joining for a few more years, who the heck knows what even the league looks like when the time comes? So you might not even ever have to worry about Yukon football, because there might not be the situation we're in right now going on 5 years from now, you know? So if from his standpoint, you can get 2-3 years of Yukon basketball, men's and women's, and all that's worth before you even have to worry about football, is that not worth a little bit of a squeeze? And I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. And you could certainly say, like, yeah, that's probably a fair trade-off. If this was straight up everybody on boards at once, I don't think anybody would really be in favor of this outside of probably Yukon fans.
Yeah.
But the stunted nature of when you'd add football versus the other sports does make it a lot more intriguing from the standpoint of you're going to get what you're really after initially, and the part that you're not so fond of, maybe you don't even cross that bridge because you never actually arrive there. And that's the interesting information that you're playing with and guessing on if you're Brett Yormark and company.
He said 30 cents on the dollar of basketball is getting. And so he really, I mean, clearly there's a 70 cents of a gap there that he wants to make up of what he believes it's worth. So best of luck to him on that. I do think this, though, when it comes to adding Yukon into this league, it is already awesome. And while adding Yukon or Gonzaga or something into a basketball league like that and creating something different and new is intriguing, just as a college basketball fan, and not even as, you know, a person who likes watching Big 12 games or whatever. I like Yukon to be in the Big East in basketball. Like, that's what I
fair.
like.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what I like.
That's
As somebody who's like, I'm a legitimate college basketball fan. You know, Connecticut versus teams in the Big 12, great, fine. You know, that'll be fun to watch most of the time. But also, I don't know, like the novelty will wear off to me, I think, a little bit. And
I don't know, man. I think we're sitting in an era where we're talking about the driving force in a lot of TV is brands and matchups.
Yeah.
I mean, what's bigger matchup wise, the Big 12 as it is, or the Big 12 with Yukon basketball? All of a sudden, that where you're, and look, I said the other day, you know, you're making this move and you're dabbling on how much money you're actually going to make because you maybe get one game a year against Yukon, but that game is Yukon Houston, and it's Yukon Kansas, and it's Yukon Baylor, and it's, you know, Yukon Arizona, and so that is very interesting. But is it as valuable as he seems to think it is? I don't know that. And that's for the presidents to figure out and ultimately vote on. I know that just based on the tea leaves, like it's anybody's guess as to where that falls right now. But I mean, I understand where he's coming from. I absolutely get it. And I'm very curious to see how the presidents ultimately land.
One of the things I'll say as we head to the break is that there are a couple of people that I could normally reach out to who I have for a long time, and they would give me some sort of an answer off the record or otherwise. Neither one of them have responded to me. And it's almost like I think they're just kind of waiting. Normally they would, no matter the most tense situations during the realignment comings and goings, they always would respond, but they haven't this time.
Well, it sounds like it's a pretty close little conversation happening at the moment. And so I don't know about you guys, but I would not be surprised if it does happen. I mean, at this stage, we're so far along now that if tomorrow, and Paul better be ready because, I mean, you never know. But if tomorrow they were to announce the Yukon's joining, that would not shock me in the slightest at this stage. But if it weren't to happen, that wouldn't shock me either. Like, I think that's how close this thing is. And I totally understand the pro-Yukon and why that makes sense. But if they decide to stay pat, then I don't think that that's necessarily a bad decision either. So, yeah, man, it's a heck of a gamble either way, and I'm very interested to see where they fall, like I said.
One more thing for us to discuss, right? One more speculation-type topic of discussion. Coming up, we'll even ask Sam Kahn about it. Sam Kahn will join us most of the time on Thursdays at about 3:30. Max Olson at 4, Matt Brown 4:25. That's coming up around the corner. Ren Baker at just after 5. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress is my dentist. Takes care of my dental work. Also makes sure that I understand the maintenance needed. It's like you have to make sure you get your oil changed when it comes to your car, get your tires rotated, make sure you have all of that taken care of. The same thing applies when it comes to my dental work and your dental work, because if you don't, something's going to go wrong. If you don't take care of it when you have the slightest little that it becomes a major like it's going to be a tooth pull or terrible cavity, and you got to have something, of course, with a possible root canal. Dr. Steve Childress, when he says, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this is what we need to do, because It's, well, you waited too long. All that's done for me. The only thing I have left that's kind of a major deal is to make sure I get my full temporary to my full bridge done. And that's going to take some time because it's also going to take some money, but Dr. Steve Childress will be the one, along with Scott Warren, who will do that for me. Steve Childress with great dentists also, not just him, but others, techs, specialists, hygienists, and more. Those who say hi to you when you walk through the front door and set up your appointment. Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Get behind the wheel of the 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee Overland at Allen Samuels in Waco. Choose between 2 or 3 rows and save $12,000 or take advantage of 0% financing. Looking for something smaller? Drive home a 2024 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 and save $9,760 or take 0% financing and get $3,000. Don't miss out during the Make This the Summer of Jeep event at Allen Samuels in Waco, where we deliver your next adventure. See dealer for details.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Penny to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, busy man like everybody is who covers college football that is underway and full throttle this weekend. Sam, thank you for your time. And the games tonight in the Big 12, Kansas should win easily. Obviously, Utah should win easily. What about that game, the intriguing game with Colorado, who you would think has too much, but North Dakota State being that's a tough non-conference opponent?
Yeah, no doubt. It's one that you don't really want to mess around with. If you're Colorado, you probably want to jump early and get an early lead and take control of that. Me personally, I think Colorado will handle business pretty well tonight. They've done a really good job this offseason adding talent. I thought what they did to upgrade their offensive line was superb. A lot of really good players along the front there. And to me, that's the biggest thing for Colorado this year. They've got to do a better job of predicting to Shedeur Sanders, because that was the one thing that if you look at last year, there was a lot of issues last year. Defensively, they had some issues as well. But I think if there's one thing you could point to that they really needed to fix, it was protecting the quarterback, because when they do, they've got legitimate high-end skill talent at the offensive skill positions. And I love some of the guys they added this year, some of the guys they got back. I think of a guy like LeJonte Wester, the punt returner, and dynamite receiver. I think he's going to be fun to watch. And I think Colorado will handle business tonight, but like North Dakota State's a program. If you let them hang around, then they might pop you.
Sam, when you look across the rest of the Big 12 this week, there's not a lot outside of West Virginia and Penn State that'll grab you. So when you watch these games, what do you watch for when Kansas is playing Lindenwood or something like that?
Yeah, I want to see first, are you dominant? Are you dominating the opponents you're supposed to? Because that to me is the first sign of an alarm, is if you are not taking care of business against a team that you have way more talent than. Procedurally, are you operating cleanly? Do you have a lot of self-inflicted wounds? Are you putting the ball on the ground? Are you having penalties that are unforced, pre-snap penalties, things like that? And then obviously just basic execution. Like, are you executing the offense? Obviously, a lot of these game plans are going to be fairly vanilla on both sides of the ball, especially if you're really overmatched over your opponent. But I want to see in those situations, especially for your newer players, guys who are stepping in to roles for the first time, whether it's a new quarterback or a new starter at a key position, are you doing what you're supposed to do? Are you executing at a high level? Those are kind of the things I look for, because if you're having issues now against an opponent that you're way better than, then what does that mean for the future?
Sam, I know that Houston's not expecting to be very good this year, but there's an excitement at least because they know it's new and that they're building. But I've been seeing a lot of Donovan Smith NFL type of talk here lately. He's obviously got, the NFL background with his father. He's got great size and skills. Turns the ball over too much. But just kind of what in general do you hear about Donovan Smith and kind of the expectation for him this year coming off of an injury?
Yeah, they like him because he's a really big, strong guy who's got a really good arm and is mobile, can move around. He's smart. He's a leader. Even at the old stop at Texas Tech, they spoke really highly of him. And I don't think they wanted him to go. I think Joey McGuire would have been happy for him to stay, but he wanted to be fair to Donovan and let him know, hey, your chances to start, you can't guarantee a starting job to him, because they had Baron Morton there as well, and they still had Tyler Shuck when Donovan left. So Donovan wanted to seek an opportunity to be a full-time starter. He got that at Houston. He took it on the chin a little bit last year, but the whole Houston team did. I think they really struggled last year in a way that I think they didn't expect. But now that he's kind of settled in and they've got a new system, a new coaching staff, I think he's got a real chance to take off. I really didn't think when I watched them last year, I didn't think Donovan Smith was the problem with that team. There were a lot of other issues beyond that at Houston. I think Donovan, if he's got a very sound structure around him and you protect, I think he's got really high potential. I don't know that I want to say he's a day one draft pick, but I do think, could I see him playing at the next level with his physical gifts? Absolutely.
You and Pete Sampson wrote a combo piece in theathletic.com about the Notre Dame game, top 10 team against 22nd ranked A&M. Kyle Field, I've been there for games. We all have in some ways, but I mean, it's just different. But obviously they need to win the game. But your thoughts about what Notre Dame will face and just the anticipation for a game one between these two teams?
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating because the game to me is going to be won or lost when Notre Dame has the ball. When they're on offense with this offensive line that they have that's got 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores on it, they've got 6 combined starts in Kyle Field with 106,000 people screaming their heads off. And oh, by the way, a really talented defensive line with guys like Shamar Turner and Nick Scorton and some of the transfers they've added. I really think this is going to be a fascinating thing to watch. Like, you got a true freshman starting at left tackle. That's asking a lot for Notre Dame to be able to ask your young left tackle to handle that environment on the road for your college debut. But I do think Mike Denbrock, the offensive coordinator, thought it was a good hire. I think he'll be smart. They'll probably get Riley Leonard moving around. They probably will do their best to not put their line in compromising situations, make him mobile, make things easy on them, and kind of weather the storm early on. But it's a challenge because this is a Mike Elko coach team. We're going to see them at A&M for the first time, but we've seen what his defenses look like at A&M and certainly have saw what they played like at Duke. And I expect that A&M is going to be a pretty good defensive team this year. And I think that things could get really interesting, especially if you see a lot of struggles early on for Notre Dame.
Sam, what would you say would surprise people as a maybe a hidden strength of A&M that they're not expecting this year?
I think probably the receiver in the passing game, because that they've had so many talented receivers, and of course some of them left. They lost Evan Stewart to the portal. I think they still have really good talent there. Noah Thomas, I really like. They brought Ja'Day Walker back, Cyrus Allen, the transfer. You hear a lot of good things about him so far in his development. And with Wegman, if he's healthy, which he is, he's 100%. I heard Mike Elko say the other day, he's clear, he's good to go. And if they can keep him upright, I think that passing game can be pretty explosive. I think that they may not have someone who's got the name value or the explosiveness that Evan Stewart did, but I think they still got plenty of talent over there. And the biggest question for me with them is they've got to get better running the ball. Last year they struggled in that area. They were one of the lower end Power 5 teams in terms of running the ball. And that's one thing that Colin Klein did really well at K-State. K-State was one of the best running teams. They're real creative in their run looks. But again, that's another question mark because they lost Reuben Owens. They do have some depth back there with Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels. So they've got guys back there, but I'm really curious to see how that develops and how quickly they adapt to what Colin Klein wants to do schematically in the offense.
Sam, where will you be? I know you're going to travel, and sometimes you'll watch like we all do, either at a game or somewhere else. Where will you be? What's your travel schedule like?
I will be at Notre Dame, Texas A&M this weekend, so I'll get the Saturday night game. I'll be chilling up until about then, so I'll probably hang out at home and watch on the couch until about 1 o'clock, and then I'll get on the road and head to College Station and try to beat the traffic a little bit down there, but I'll be there at Kyle Field on Saturday night.
Hell of an atmosphere, 100,000 plus, probably 106 to 8,000 will be at that game.
You know, Sam, I went to the first like 2 or 3 times they played in the Cotton Bowl when I was a kid. And I kind of felt like A&M and Notre Dame had played a lot more, but this is only the 6th meeting between the two. And the first 3 in particular in the Cotton Bowl were all epic. This is something I'd kind of like to see A&M and Notre Dame do more often, just because I think that whenever they play, it seems to be super fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I guess the last time they played was 2001. So it's been a long time. But from in the late 80s, early 90s, all 5 of their previous battles are between 88 and 2001. So that's why it feels like you. I grew up, I remember seeing them play either in bowl games or early September game. And so that was a usual thing. And R.C. Slocum's teams back then were pretty good. And Notre Dame obviously was still a national title contender in that, especially in the early 90s. And so you had a really good A&M program and a nationally relevant Notre Dame going at it. And so there was some really good battles back then. But yeah, it's been 23 years since they played. So I think it's going to be fun. And the fun thing about this game too, to me, is that in this new playoff era, nobody necessarily is eliminated, but you can really put a good resume builder right here on your schedule. So if you're Notre Dame, you're Marcus Freeman, you really kind of get out in front of things on a big pressure year where I think they really need one. They really need to break through in year 3 under Freeman and get to the playoffs. So you get this game because you look at the rest of Notre Dame's schedule, it's not super impressive. So I think this is a really good benchmark game for them. And then you look at A&M, I don't think it's in the world they lose, but if they win, you kind of look at the next few weeks, it's kind of manageable. And they don't have Alabama, they don't have Ole Miss, they don't have Georgia, and they get all their other ranked teams at home. So whoever wins this game is going to be in a pretty good position going forward based on how their schedule lays out.
Sam, any thoughts on the Big 12's pursuit of Yukon? The stunted edition is, something that makes this a little bit more interesting and probably confusing, for some that it wouldn't all be right away. But, there's obviously a lot of moving parts here. Do you gather really anything from people you've talked to, or do you have any sort of a strong feeling on this attempt to try and, expand further?
I'm just going to say this, man. Get you a friend who loves you the way Brett Yormark loves Yukon.
I'm saying, man. Yeah.
I mean, this thing I feel like is not going to go away until it actually gets done, because it seems like he is very laser focused on it. And like you guys, I'm sure have heard, there's not a consensus in the league to make this happen. So it's up to him to kind of whip the votes together and get it across the finish line. I'm not a huge fan of it, kind of for the same reasons Paul was talking about earlier. I kind of like UConn in the Big East, especially as a basketball program. And I like that the Big East, when the old football league crumbled, that they brought all those brands back together in basketball, because that's what college sports really should be. It should be a lot of like-minded institutions that are close to each other geographically, that have some rivalries and some similar culture and things like that and have them play together. And not to say that Yukon would be an asset to the Big 12. I think it would be certainly in basketball, football, not so much, but they have, I mean, once upon a time they did play in a BCS bowl, but gosh, that was so long ago. I just don't know that the juice is worth the squeeze, in my opinion, but I understand why they're interested in them because of the basketball brand and the emphasis that Brett puts on that. And also because, you know, where they're located, geography obviously doesn't seem to matter anymore in realignment. So if you're able to get further and further and go coast to coast, as Brett Yormark has said he wants to go, I understand it in that way. I'm just not a huge fan of it. But I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these realignment moves. Like the fact that Cal and Stanford are in the ACC is also ridiculous. So it's not for me, but I understand why they're doing it. And I think it's just kind of not going to go away. Also, I'll say this. Can we stop doing this right before the season? I hate this. I feel like every single year since 2021, when the Texas and Oklahoma thing happened, we have the realignment stuff going on right before the season. And it's time to talk about games, not talk about this nonsense.
Now, I agree.
Amen.
With you. That's what Craig said earlier this week about it before the season. And it, again, it just becomes a topic, but at the same time kind of annoying. You, Manny Navarro, and Bruce Feldman did a combo piece about a week ago about the top transfers. As I'm going through that list last week, the names of players who could win a Heisman Trophy and all, I mean, it is unbelievable the names who have gone from one school to the other, sometimes because of, like, for example, DeBoer to Alabama. So, but good God, you'll see Riley Leonard on Saturday. You'll see the defensive lineman from Purdue that went to A&M on Saturday. It's unbelievable the names of the players that are a part of that list.
You could make an All-America team out of the portal guys, the guys who transferred. Like Dominic Williams, who went from TCU to Oklahoma. He started all 27 games at TCU and a national championship game against Georgia. I mean, you're talking former 5-stars. You're talking Quinshon Judkins, who was a freshman All-American. Cam Ward, who was a tremendous talent at Incarnate Word, then Washington State. And I think he could really lift Miami this year. It was a really fun list to put together. A lot of intrigue and just we try to really find out too, not just who are the big names that move, but who has really performed well since they've been on campus, because not every transfer hits. Some of them get there and maybe they're going to end up being a backup or rotational guy. Maybe they're not going to break out, or maybe they're not what that staff thought they were going to be when they finally get there. So we tried to get as much intel as we could about how these guys are really doing and who's going to break out. And I'm fascinated. That is one cool thing. As much as I know that the movement doesn't always enamor the fans, it does add an interesting element, and it adds some intriguing storylines like the Riley Leonard, Mike Elko thing that makes it gives another layer for us to follow as we watch these games.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com. Thank you very much. Look forward to it. I know depending on what your schedule is and what you're writing, we'll have you on Thursdays. Can't wait. Appreciate your time, buddy. Great to have you on the show.
Thanks, y'all. Take care.
Sam Kahn, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. Notre Dame and A&M, West Virginia, Penn State, and I know there's others, but
USC, LSU
later in the weekend. Of course, you have the Miami, not two ranked teams, but Miami and Florida in Gainesville has got a lot of implications there. Clemson, Georgia. I mean, I almost wish I didn't have a game to do, or a pregame or postgame, even though the pregame's at 9 a.m., and just sit back with a bunch of that sausage, queso dip, and whatever else, and watch TV or binge on college football for 15 hours.
I tried to get that done for myself this weekend, and I was reminded that it's not all up to me, that, you know, one of us likes to leave the house when, you know, in the middle of that in my house.
Well, you're going to be at the pregame. You're going to the game?
Not this week, no.
Okay.
No, not this week. No, no. I'll definitely go to the I'll be at the Air Force game, but I'm not going to go to this one. So I really want to watch that Notre Dame A&M game. So that's what I'm going to watch.
Oh, that's right. That's a 6:30 kick.
Yeah. So
but
yeah, I'm definitely going to go to the Air Force game.
For those that don't know what Paul's tap dancing around, his wife will not allow him to have his full Saturday. You're just going to dance it all. Just cut straight to that.
Yeah.
But that's the give and take of marriage, Paul.
Yes,
right?
it is.
What do you mean you're going to leave in the middle of the game?
Well, I mean, like in the middle of the block of 15 hours of all that.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. All right. I just can't wait to sit down and watch the games when we're done with the pregame. And it's about the time they'll start those 11 o'clock kicks, and I'll enjoy the hell out of every one of them. Craig, what do you, when you watch or binge college football, if Baylor's on the road, no matter if you're watching their game or what time they kick off, do you have something you like to as a go-to around where you live that you like nibble on or binge during the day?
No, I don't have any. I'm usually out at the game all day long, like we normally don't have.
If they're on the road. If they're on the road.
If they're on the road, no, I don't have any like tradition or anything like that. No, I don't go out on the grill or anything of that nature. It's just not part of my normal routine. I just kick back and go grab something to eat, but I don't make it like a whole day-long thing. That's just not really what my setup is, but definitely, love others that are able to do that and enjoy it when I can, when I'm hanging out with certain people. But no, not a big routine guy on college football Saturdays.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things about we'll be doing our pregames at 9 o'clock on Saturday mornings, no matter what time Baylor kicks off. So we'll have a 9 o'clock pregame for an hour and a half, and then the game that night, and then the postgame. I'll be there for the postgame, and we will have a Baylor player in the postgame, no matter win or lose, throughout all the various postgame shows we have on 365 Sports Plus, get other notes from those who are at the games, home or away. When we come back, the 4 o'clock hour with Max Olson from theathletic.com. Oh, let's go to the Mike Craven story to wrap up the segment with a couple of minutes left in this 3 o'clock hour. So Mike Craven talked to the various schools in Texas, 13 FBS schools. Every one of them, based on the story that I read from Mike Craven, want the transfer portal to be in the fall, from early December to early January to a man. What you do in the spring is build your team for the rest of the year, and that, of course, got interrupted a lot with the portal being during that time too.
I'm all for one portal window. Like I'm all about workers' rights and all those different things that are going on. Like I'm a man of the people, but also, like, can we just get some organization? Can we just agree to organization?
Yeah.
Like, this wasn't about, like, sometimes the people who are like, this is infringing on our rights are like, no, it's not really. It just needs to be more organized. And, like, that's it.
Well,
it's not taking away anything. You just have to.
Can we pick and choose when people want to protest something on what's right or wrong?
I get. No, we can't. Obviously, that's not how it works. But sometimes, like, I think you'd be better served to, like, really say, like, okay, what's going on here? And
the problem with college football is that there was so many rules for so long that now it's unraveled and they're having to give so much. But then it tilted so far to the other side where they couldn't control anything that the other side got everything they ever wanted. And now that they don't get everything necessarily that they wanted, and I don't mean that disparagingly either way, but now it's like, what do you mean we can't have two sides? What do you mean we can't have this? It's like, in every walk of life, in every organization or sport or bit, like, there are rules. Like, there are things that you just do and you don't do, and that's the nature of the game. And I do think college football went from, like, I don't even know how you would describe it, the strictest of rules in a lot of ways, to all of a sudden, let's unwind a lot of these because we're being forced to legally, and we have no control over the car, and the car's just barreling uncontrollably, and we're having to react to all these little accidents that we, have never had to deal with before, and clean them up and try to make the best of the situation. I think they've done that with NIL, although that's still a work in progress. The transfer portal still a work in progress. And so I think just there's been so much change that it's taken a while to, like I was saying yesterday, like, you don't just make the decision the very first time and nail it every single time. And so they've had to go back to the drawing board time and again with the transfer portal. But yeah, at some point, you're just going to have to land on a decision that makes sense for the majority and doesn't necessarily make every single person happy. And this is one of those things where, yeah, it's a real shame. And I already hear the cries of well, what about the quarterback after the spring? Too bad. Like, what about the program that just spent all spring doing a bunch of work with people for no reason because those guys just left as soon as practices were over? So what was the freaking point?
Attending classes.
So what was the point?
Yeah.
So now you did spring ball with guys who are going to leave. So what was the point? So that was all.
Well,
that's
one
pointless.
of the things. That's one of the things.
For both of them.
Yes, for both sides.
Everybody. One of the things that was brought up in a quote from a coach is that spring ball's dead.
Yeah.
If they don't get
spring
rid of the
ball didn't matter at all this past year in a lot of ways.
And if they don't get rid of the spring window, they might as well just not have spring football.
Right. And so the downside of that is, you conflict with the bowls and you coincide with a lot of really important dates in a very busy time of year at the start of the year. But at least everybody will start the year, like knowing what's what at least. I mean, we got to a point where people don't even know who's going to be on their team 2 months from now or 2 weeks from now. And player freedom of movement needed to happen and needed to be expanded, and certainly wasn't great the way that it was. It was illegal. But, it comes a point where, I'm sorry, you can't just hop to and fro like a frog on a lily pad at your own whims, because there are ramifications for a lot of other people involved. And ultimately, what's best for college football, not the individual player. I think you can scratch both backs, but you can't make everybody 100% happy. So I'm with this. I think that spring football this past year was an afterthought in a lot of ways because everybody was just waiting for the guys that we were talking about to leave. And so if you get that out of the way and we enter the year and we have the fun at the beginning of the year of the portal quarterbacks and all those guys deciding where they're going to go, that's great. You're not getting rid of that, but you're just not allowing guys to make spring ball meaningless, basically.
We need people who make decisions, no matter their age, to have consequences and learn from that. For example, one coach did say this: what if you get gutted in December? How do we fix the roster? This probably depends on where you're coaching, but he mentioned the fact that it's all about spring is to promote your school, to promote roster stability so you know who you have going forward. That's not a bad question.
No, it is. But also, if you...
Is that better than getting gutted post-spring?
But if you... Okay. Okay, but if you know that you could potentially get gutted in December, now you also know that you need to react to everything, as opposed to for the coaches, they can't just go like, all right, well, we'll wait till that other one. We'll wait till that other one.
Unquote. A lot of coaches like the post-spring window to run people off.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's just the players bolting.
No, this is...
Oh, no, this is the coaches as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're not free.
Let's make it a productive exercise as much as it can be. Football at its historical core was very disorganized. Before Teddy Roosevelt made them all get in a room and make rules, when they had professional football teams, you could, before and even after that, when the early days of the NFL, you could play for one team 1 week and then just say, like, I'm quitting. I'm leaving the Foxburg so-and-sos to go play for the Minnesota, All Blues. And you just do it. And, there was no that, and it was chaotic. And so, there needs to be organization. And sometimes if both sides are a little uncomfortable, then that means it's probably the best resolution.
Yep. Okay. We have Max Olson. We'll ask Max a little bit about that too. Craig, finish it up. All right. 365 Sports Monday through Friday. We're live from 3 until 6. Paul's triple option 1 until 2. And starting this week is when Craig and I, for a lot of Fridays coming up in a row, we will not be in the studio because we'll be covering high school football. In fact, a game tomorrow night that we have. And so that is about to start with this week and our high school football coverage.
And I'm putting it out there. This is my last ride. This is my last ride. So, Lord willing, we still are doing this show next year.
I may just put you in the transfer portal in October.
No, I mean, I put in my time. I put in my time for a long time, and I love high school football. I love what it means in this state, but I've been doing it long enough that, I want to know what falls feel like again. I know Paul's had that experience. Garrett's had that experience.
You guys can bite me.
So this is
Every one of you.
This is the start of my last ride, man.
Nobody's stopping you.
Yep. I'm just putting that out there, so now I kind of have to force myself to it.
Football.
But that's why I'm basically saying that and letting it be known.
Yeah, and a lot of coaches have said they're retiring and they come back.
No, I promise you that's not the case.
When we come back, Max Olson, theathletic.com before, now with ESPN. Having Max and Sam on the same day is great. ESPN's Max Olson next on 365 Sports. So coming up this weekend, Baylor has a home game against Tarleton State. In a couple of weeks, they have a home game the second weekend in September against Air Force, the Air Force Academy and the Falcons. And so if you stay in touch, if you're a Baylor alum and you want to have a watch party, and it's not in Waco where you could be at the game, or it's not next week in Salt Lake City with Utah, contact Doug Furch, Paul Thorpe, and the Baylor Alumni Engagement Group, and they can help you set up a watch party and publicize it to wherever you might be, whether it's in Houston or it's in Orlando or it's in Los Angeles or even Chicago. The Baylor Alumni Engagement, Fan Engagement can help you get what you want done by having people know about it and telling them about it and being at the events when you're on the road. They, of course, are always, everywhere they play, available with the various caps and whatever else you want. And, of course, you can say hello to them and all your friends networking with Baylor alums across the country with Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Yukon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Max Olson, ESPN, joins us Thursdays, most every Thursday, depending on his schedule and what's available. He joins us on 365 Sports. Max, we were just talking at the end of the last hour about this transfer window of getting down to 1, and saw stories about most coaches would like to keep the 1 in December, even though that can be confusing. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely talked to a lot of coaches who have frustration about the spring transfer period. And, you know, I think certainly anecdotally, we saw some stories this spring of players, Louisville lost a few of like, okay, they just got here in January, and now for some reason in April they are going back in the portal. And I think that, I had this conversation with Lane Kiffin this spring, who kind of made the point of like, not only would he argued, look, the NFL would never do this. The NFL would never have 2 free agency periods. They have their business year and they get all this done in one event. But also, I think on the coaching side, the frustration is you feel like these guys are kind of just committing to the next 6 months with you and not committing to the full year. And so, I think that that's kind of the argument behind it. And let's just get this all done so you can get players on campus in January and you have a little bit more certainty about who's going to be on your team next season. But obviously, as we've seen, and as we saw with the one-time transfer rule, like if you're going to try and take this away from people, then you may have to go to court over it too.
Max, there's just no organization to it. Like that's the thing. And I get people wanting to have more freedom, but can't you kind of maybe get to the fact that like if you're leaving in the spring, then spring football is pointless for both sides?
Yeah, and certainly you got to think about, we're living in a time now where it is unlimited transfers. So you kind of assume that there's just, I don't know that the number of transfers will keep going up in like I don't know that it will keep jumping 20% every year like we've seen, which is crazy. But I think you have to kind of understand now that it's all on the table in terms of anyone going in the portal whenever they want. And now we've got to kind of figure out the financial structure of how we pay them next year. Like, I think you are setting up for a pretty chaotic portal in December, and I can see why, just in terms of trying to manage that chaos, can you just get all that done over 1 month?
Max, busy Thursday night. I know you had a piece on the Colorado Buffaloes. They obviously are walking into a situation where, man, you love them or you love to hate them is what I kind of keep saying about Colorado. They're polarizing, and people are going to be watching here early on, specifically with a pretty tough opponent right out of the gates. What's the vibe check from your standpoint with Colorado and just, entering the Big 12 and all the expectations and talk about them? Where do you see them as the season begins?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still going to be a ton of fascination around people tuning into Colorado to see can Deion Sanders pull this off. And, I think that there is confidence, and not just like internally there, but people I've talked to that have that are in the recruiting space, that the caliber of players that they took out of the transfer portal this offseason, they brought in 39 more players via the portal this offseason. I think there's a sense that the caliber of player they got is better than the previous year. And so like you kind of trust, and obviously it's going to matter the most on the offensive and defensive line. And if they whiffed on the offensive line takes, then some of this stuff is not going to matter, right? But like, I think there is a belief that they did a better job of recruiting on defense. I think there's a bunch of players they added on the defensive line who will be impactful. And I think that you feel like, they added more playmakers, and, you've got a little bit more, a lot of change in terms of the coaching staff. And I think that's kind of the X factor for a little bit of like, does that all gel? But I think Colorado is just going to be must-watch TV yet again. And, when you go through the schedule, I really do think they were given one of the toughest schedules in the Big 12. And so just in terms of who they play and where they play on the road, I think that it's going to be a pretty tough road here. And, you talk to some people who feel like, oh, they could win 8 or 9 games. And you talk to some people who feel like, they're not going to be that much better because this schedule is tougher. And, I think it's just going to be thoroughly entertaining no matter what.
Well, they have so many playmakers. Are we not giving them enough credit for what they did bring in yet, as far as those who can block and tackle on the front lines?
I think they did get some proven players on the offensive line. I think Khalil Benson, I think Justin Mayers at guard. Like, I do think that those are guys that are definitely Power 5 players. I think Jordan Seaton, obviously the 5-star true freshman, is going to be kind of, trial by fire here a little bit as a true freshman starter at left tackle. But, will they have the depth and the injury luck and just consistency up front to protect Shedeur? I'm sure they will, tweak the offense a bit to try to get the ball out faster too, and just prevent, him taking hits and him taking sacks like he did last year. But I'm very interested to see if what they've got is good enough. I do think so on the defensive line. I think that between what they have coming back and the players they added, I think it's a good front on defense. And it's just going to be like and then obviously running back, it's fresh faces and running back too. And I think they really like Michael Welch, their true freshman. They picked up Dallin Hayden from Ohio State. I'm just, will the puzzle pieces all fit together? I think it's just always been the question with Colorado because they've just been so aggressive in getting new puzzle pieces.
Max, Dylan Raiola makes that first start. He appears to have, a swagger about him for a freshman that is going to fire up Nebraska fans. What are the realistic expectations for him?
I think that by all accounts, Dylan Raiola had a really good camp, and the folks I've talked with have believed that he has lived up to the hype this offseason, and obviously came in with a lot of expectations and had a lot to prove to this coaching staff since he enrolled in January. And I think that there's a real appreciation that the arm talent is pretty special, and I think for an 18-year-old with the pressure and expectations he's got, I think I've been pretty impressed by the way he's handled everything. I think he seems like a very professional, the work ethic has impressed everybody. I think that this kid has put in a ton of work to earn the starting job. And, again, similarly, can you do a good job protecting him and getting him through the season? Did you add enough pieces on offense? Can you have a lot better injury luck on offense? That this can be a pretty functional and dangerous offense. I think there's a lot of question marks, but it's funny. In the past couple of weeks, I've had a lot of people reach out to me and be like, am I crazy to think Nebraska could be in the hunt here for a playoff spot? And I think a lot of people are looking at the schedule and thinking this is not a hard schedule for Nebraska. I think beyond the Colorado game, there's not a lot of tough opponents coming to Lincoln. Certainly they've got a trip to Ohio State, and that's a huge deal. But I think that there's a lot of optimism right now that Nebraska's defense is going to be really good, and that gives Nebraska's offense a chance to be competitive. And can you just find a way to win close games? That's as you guys saw with Matt Rule in year 2 at Baylor. Yep. That's the question mark. Is can you just figure out a way to win some close games and get to a bowl game?
Well, and there were some ups and downs. They got beat by TCU, and they had to win their last game.
You have to be more specific with Baylor. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. In the last 13 years, they've lost to TCU 15 times.
Yeah.
Except the famous one. Max, the one thing about Nebraska, though, they've had expectations since Scott Frost arrived. And, of course, that balloon was popped. And so you and I are both the same here. I want to see something different before I believe anything about him. I know that Raiola's a hell of a player, and I know the defense is stingy, and I know what they've put. But until I see them go out and look like they could dominate somebody, I just can't believe them.
I think at this point, Smokey, you need to see them win about 6 games in a row before you're buying in.
Yeah. It's
exactly. Going to take a real streak of oh man, these guys really figured it out.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think the Colorado game, if you lose it, it's a season crusher. But I think the Colorado game next week is a huge deal in terms of sending a message and, just that things have changed if you're Nebraska. And that doesn't, I don't say that in terms of it has nothing to do with Colorado. I think in a lot of ways it's Nebraska. Can you get out of your own way, not shoot yourself in the foot, play a clean football game for 60 minutes? Because obviously they didn't in Boulder a year ago. I think just the way they play, what they can control, it's a big deal. It doesn't count in the Big Ten record, but it's a big deal how they show up on that stage next week, I think, against the Bucs.
Speaking of a stage, Max, how big of one is this for Neil Brown in West Virginia welcoming in Penn State?
I can't wait. I think that place is going to be rocking. That would be a very fun game to be at. And I think that, when you watched them a year ago when they were playing that night game in Happy Valley on NBC, you just can tell offensively West Virginia was just kind of not ready for that game. And I think they got a lot better. Obviously, you saw how they played in Big 12 play. You saw when Garrett Green was healthy, when that duo of running backs got going. You felt like, man, they can play with anybody in the Big 12. I just don't think they were ready for that matchup in week 1 last year. I think they are this time. And, obviously the expectations and the pressures on Penn State as a team that everyone just expects, all right, you've got so many people back. You've added Andy Kotelnicki, you've added Tom Allen. This has got to be a playoff team. I think the pressure's on Penn State to really put it all together and on Drew Aller to get a lot better. And, I think that's a good spot for West Virginia. So, I think that is going to be a brawl, and I think if Garrett Green can play pretty clean, I think West Virginia's got a chance.
Take your pick of these three ranked versus ranked matchups to wax on Clemson and Georgia, Notre Dame and Texas A&M, USC and LSU. Which one of those pops to the top for you in terms of interest levels?
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas A&M and Notre Dame is just sort of an incredible matchup. The way that the universe has set this up with Mike Elko making his debut, having to go against Riley Leonard. I think that I think A&M is one of those teams, and I just think maybe this is more about the dysfunction of last year than what they're doing this year. But I think this is one of those teams that I know they lost a lot to the transfer portal. I know that there's definitely question marks, but I'm high on Texas A&M. Like, I think that there's a way this can all break where that they can be an actual contender in the SEC and be in the playoff conversation in November. Because I think Mike Elko has done a really good job of stabilizing things there. Losing Ruben Owens hurts a ton, and they've got to kind of figure out what they're doing in the run game. They got to figure out, who's going to really lead the way in the receiving group. But I think a healthy Connor Wigman, it gives them a chance, and I think he's got a chance. He has a chance to really I'm buying stock on Connor Wigman having a big year, and really love the way Colin Klein calls an offense. I think that's a great combination of those two, and I think that that D line should be among the best in the country, especially with the addition of Nick Scorton from Purdue. So, I think A&M, I'm just fascinated to see, can they put it together and give Notre Dame a heck of a fight here. I think that's just what a great showdown.
I love there's some great games to watch, and also we can hash and discuss them and digest them next week. I can't wait for that, too. I want to just enjoy the weekend, though, with all these games around the country. 2 games have already been delayed. Jackson State at Minnesota, potential lightning. North Carolina at Minnesota, severe weather. There's a lot of that up and down in certain parts of the country that might delay some games, so stay tuned for that as you can. That's Brett McMurphy with a couple of those. Thank you very much, Max Olson. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Max Olson with ESPN with us on 365 Sports.
Here's the thing I think Minnesota needs to do. North Carolina wouldn't agree to this, but I think they should get to coin flip when they do these non-conference games to get to schedule one in November. If they schedule, say they schedule North Carolina, they can coin flip them instead of playing them in September. If they win the flip, then they have to go to Minnesota in November and play in the cold.
Okay.
For the advantage, like high school teams do for playoff venues.
Yeah, but it's unlike the SEC. They don't stick a team that's a Power 4 school outside of the conference. I just
think that would be
that would be fun.
Yeah. Look, if
they do little tweaks that over time add up, and you see where they've built up this armor that's just they're very calculated and smart.
Yeah,
very calculated and very smart.
Absolutely.
I was waiting for Paul. Paul, I am not I'm kind of poking you a little bit, but I'm not making fun or anything. You're not going to ask Florida State, Boston College. It's a pretty big game coming up this weekend. It's a must-win.
It is.
Week 2.
And look, I'll make this point.
I just thought we'd go a day without mentioning Florida State in any way.
No.
I didn't bring it up.
No, I know.
I mean, I know. But I'll tell you, they have really cornered the market on being the only damn game that's on at any given time.
Yeah.
So
that allows
everybody's
all of America.
That is your successes make people go insane, like the 2 wins over LSU, or when you lose a game on a last-second field goal, all of a sudden everybody thinks you're going to go 0-12.
Yeah,
it's.
I tell you what, it does change the perspective.
It does, absolutely does.
Yeah, sure does.
I mean, they talked so loudly.
Yes.
It's nobody's fault but the fans' fault as far as the backlash, and all of it's just people having fun, and some of it's personal because there's people that turn it personal, but I mean it's a fair jab because you set yourself up for it, and you set yourself up and nobody else did for that moment when the bubble burst in the very first game.
There are fan bases who have never played Florida State in anything ever, that are now paying attention to their failures because Florida State's fan base has been so loud for the last few months that, okay, well, you know what? I went
from not caring about you to I don't like you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a Washington State fan. I've never even thought about, other than watching a bowl game that you were on or a big rivalry game on TV, never thought one way or the other about it. Well, now I have an opinion.
Well, I'll tell you the thing that if you're an FSU fan, because I always thought FSU was one of those schools that, like most everybody liked, unless there's a rivalry, Miami, Florida, whoever else. But I had somebody on my Twitter timeline say, don't you think Florida State is now in that category with UT?
I mean, they're acting like it.
I mean, they're
not there. I mean, like
I don't think they're all the way there as like far as being the villain for most people. I don't think they're there yet. I think it's like UT's is like that's been built up over decades.
Yeah.
And they embrace it. Florida State, I think this is just a product of the environment of the last 8-9 months. And they wouldn't have. I mean, this wasn't a result of nothing. This was a result of having a very legitimate reason of being pissed off. But it's just the part that they took that disrespect
it's
that
not been handled with aplomb.
Yeah, but they took that disrespect that had a legitimate argument. Like, I think it was BS, but like if you said like, hey, they were not the best team because they lost their starting core, that's a valid argument. We can argue all day and night, and people did and are still arguing over that. That was one thing. You were the victim in that scenario, and sure, people had their fun with you, like probably mainly Alabama fans, right? Or UF fans or Miami fans loved that you got left out. It was very, very funny to them. But the moment that you took that and you said, we're going to tear down the ACC so that we get out and we're basically going to cry about this all off season and what we want and what we need and us, like that just went on so long and so consistently that people were like, wait a second, man. Like, we get it. But like at this point, now you're just being a bunch of babies about this whole thing. And so I think it turned a corner at some point during the offseason to where they're now like this newer bad guy where I think people this season in particular are, they're going to really enjoy every time they lose a game.
Yeah. No, it went from – and look, now we've got, fans that are tweeting out viral things. They're going to eat dog crap out of a red Solo cup with a spoon and videotape it. Like – Have you seen that one? Did you see that?
No.
Oh,
a Florida State fan?
Yeah, a Florida State fan sent out a tweet that said he would eat dog crap out of a red Solo cup if they lost to BC. So now, here's the thing. Those things get in the social media ether, and this guy's going to have to delete his Twitter if they do because...
Well, you can just go follow the advice of, what was that, the Eagles fan that ate like
horse
poop?
Or whatever.
No, the dude that ate horse poop in the parade.
That was disgusting.
Yeah.
I think that guy fell off the face of the earth. But no, that sounds like a guy that is just looking for a reason to do it. That's what it sounds like to me.
What a sick man.
Although it's not likely that BC beats them. But no, they made themselves like a 2024 bad guy. I don't know if it lasts beyond that, but some of that was their own doing. And then some of that was your Feinbaum's throwing gasoline on, maybe what's not a raging fire any longer than like getting everybody riled back up by saying something and popping off. And it just continues it on and on to where it's lasted all the way into this year. It's still bleeding over from last season. And then you have what happened last Saturday, and it's just the perfect storm of being able to, point and laugh or, have your fun with a team that you don't like. So there's going to be a lot more of that. It's not going to be just Florida State, but they set themselves up for that one.
Tonight starts 5 consecutive days of college football. 5, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then that game, as we just discussed, Florida State, Boston College on a Monday. When we come back, we haven't talked to Matt Brown in a while. Craig brought up that EA Sports. Seems like it's kind of just like disappeared. It hasn't. It continues to sell a bunch, but we'll get into that, plus his thoughts about the opening full weekend in college football. And this is 365 Sports. Don Chumador in Coffee Beans, Joshua and Cheyenne that own it and run the business just off of Valley Mills Drive in the Townwest Shopping Center in Waco, a 48-foot walk in Humidor with great brands of cigars. Rocky Patel, Arturo Fuente, Romeo and Julieta, Cohiba, Padron, Macanudo, My Father, a bunch of them. Just all of the great brands of cigars and the national and internationally ranked cigars inside of their humidor. But then they started something new when they began a wall in the humidor off to the right that is only Texas brand cigars, along with all the others along the wall, but in the back right corner, Texas brand cigars. And a lot of them are made and owned by ex-military, veterans, etc. So go support them if you can. If you like to smoke cigars, Don Chumador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center. They also have all of what you need when it comes to if you have somebody or you yourself are involved in smoking a pipe. They have fixed pipes for people who have driven in from Dallas-Fort Worth for them. Don Chimador and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills in between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Matt Brown, Extra Points, joins us on 365 Sports, and one of the stories he had in the newsletter I received when I get it, Extra Points, 5 storylines I'm watching ahead of this college football season. Matt, what is the number one? Is it how the teams do with realignment? What is your number one storyline?
I am fascinated about how schools are going to respond in the 12-team playoff era when they've never been playing championship caliber or games that matter for the national championship in mid to late November before. You know, in the four-team era, we generally knew almost everybody that was going to be in the college football playoff by week 10, or by mid-November. But now, and especially in the Big 12, I think that there's going to be maybe 15, 20 teams that are still going to be in that conversation. How are they going to handle that pressure? How are the athletes going to respond? How do people stay engaged knowing that maybe a game in September and October doesn't quite mean the same thing as it might late in the season? I'm very excited to watch.
Matt, first of all, to have watched real football and not digital football for you had to be fun for a weekend. What are your thoughts on some of the bigger games to start out this week, like Miami and Florida, LSU and USC, Clemson and Georgia? Where do you sit on those?
I think that the Miami-Florida game is so interesting, not because of where these teams are going to end up necessarily at the end of the year, but this is an anxiety bowl, right? This is a game that is generally not enjoyed when it's played at the beginning of the year so much as it is endured. With both of these fan bases feeling frustrated with their coaching staff, having a lot of pressure and everything riding on this game. And when they generally play, because this game isn't at night, it's at 2:30 God's time zone. It's got to be a gajillion degrees. It's usually kind of a sloppy game in the beginning of the year, and it's one that I think it'll be very difficult for Florida to make a bowl game if they don't find a way to win here, knowing what the back end of their schedule looks like. I'm fascinated. It's like Miami 2.5. I feel like Miami's a better team across the board in multiple positions. But in terms of stakes and drama, I think that might be the biggest one, even if it won't be the most well-played game this weekend.
Matt Brown with us, Extra Points on 365 Sports. Matt, 365, the EA Sports College Football 25. So much buildup after so many years, and then all of a sudden explosive. And everybody, it seemed like my timeline filled with a lot of that information and excitement. I know I read your article that the sales continue to go crazy, but has it calmed down at all?
I mean, only a tiny little bit. This was, I think, an industry journal reported this last week. This was the best-selling video game of the entire year. Which is very difficult to do for sports games, and one that moved the sale of more physical consoles, more PlayStation 5s, more new Xboxes than anything else. And generally, at this stage, it's a Grand Theft Auto game or a gigantic AAA game that's not sports that moves those. So it speaks to the enormous amount of fan energy and new consumers that have been energized by this. I think it will be interesting just as like a business story to see what not just the sales of the game itself are like, but the sales and the revenue and how much time people are spending with the game during the season. Because it's one thing to be able to knock off 15 hours a week when there's no actual football going on, but when there's professional football and there's actual games, will people be playing it less? We'll see.
Matt, what is leading some players to just now be opting into the game?
The dirty little secret about all this is it's legitimately surprising that there weren't more of them, because opting into the game required a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old to answer multiple emails and to go download an app on their phone. And we joke about this, but the reason that so many athletes engaged in this NIL deal so quickly wasn't just because one team partners walked into the locker room and opened up the laptop and said, come on in and opt in. It was because NIL employees for schools and football operations coordinators and GAs and assistants were browbeating people all up and down the country because coaches felt like it would be a recruiting disadvantage if their team wasn't represented in full. Despite all of that, you still had a handful of guys on each team that either transferred in late or were late arriving freshmen or who just were slow on the paperwork. And now after the update this morning, you're seeing dozens of those players in the game now for the first time.
Your thoughts about the story that came out earlier in the week with Yukon? It's back on the table, apparently. The Big 12 doesn't seem like it's, I don't know if it's going to pass or not, if it ever gets to a vote. Your thoughts about this being back in the news?
Yeah, I've made a couple of phone calls about that this week, and I'm not surprised that Yukon is very interested in potentially joining the league, and I'm not surprised that the Big 12 conference leadership is very interested in it. Brett Yormark has been pretty transparent about really wanting to be in the New York market. He's been transparent about wanting to grow the basketball IP and brand and potentially spin that off into a separate broadcast deal and bringing in the 2-time defending national men's basketball champions and the most valuable women's basketball brand obviously fits into all of that. The challenge is that I don't think the math behind all of this has changed all that much. Fox, one of the tier 1 broadcast partners here for the Big 12, just signed a new deal with the Big East. They already have Yukon. If Yukon leaves, that tanks the value of their existing investment in that conference. And I've been told that if Yukon leaves, the Big East is going to make this very unpleasant and difficult. And there's going to be a lot of very hurt feelings, which will complicate some of the broadcast math here. Based on what I've heard right now, I'm not putting this into concrete or writing it in blood or anything, but I think the most likely outcome is that Yukon doesn't end up getting enough votes. This is an initiative that is coming more out of the league office than it is a groundswell among the school presidents who still have a lot of financial questions that need answered.
Matt, house settlement is, I mean, it's still out there, and there's more and more groups that are protesting it. What do you think is the short-term and long-term future of this agreement?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because to bring this all kind of big picture here, or full circle for the kind of work that I do, the most recent update, I think, actually hinges a lot about the video game. You might have seen this at the National College Players Association, one of the largest pro athlete advocacy groups, Ramogi's group, came out today saying that they oppose the House settlement and they're going to work to defeat it. And it's not surprising. A lot of athlete activist groups and a lot of agents and people involved in the collective space don't like this proposed settlement. They think that it's going to set a different cap on player earnings. It's going to redirect money or try to limit the money that flows from boosters and collectives to high-level athletes. That's bad for agents. That's bad for anybody in the collective's business, and it's bad for anybody in the union business. It's going to be difficult to stop this settlement unless Judge Wilkin rules it, dismisses it or forces changes, which does happen sometimes in antitrust cases, but it's not the most likely outcome. But none of the major athlete advocacy groups right now have a lot of current athletes signed up and engaged in their efforts. But One Team Partners, the firm that helped facilitate the EA Sports Group license and got that big mailing list of 14,000 football players, they sent something out saying, hey, you should join this advocacy organization. They have your best interests at heart. That might help the NCFA, the Ramogi's group here, be able to get the votes that they need, the support they need to push back against this.
All right, Matt, when do you think we'll hear the first coach complain about having to travel further now with all the realignment in college football, with Stanford, Cal, and the ACC and other schools in the Big Ten, et cetera, and Mountain Time schools, more of them in the Big 12? Do you think we'll hear somebody in a post game, even if they win or not, pop off about the travel wearing them out?
I mean, probably, because God bless football coaches, they complain about everything because they're all control freaks. Where you're going to see this more, I feel quite confident, is you're going to hear soccer coaches complain about it. You're going to hear volleyball coaches complain about it. People that never asked for any of this and are just along for the ride, and who also probably aren't flying charter to all of these things. Mm-hmm. They're going to complain about having to fly into Harrisburg and drive an hour and a half to get to State College when they came out of Oregon. I don't think you're going to hear that too much in the beginning of the year, especially because all these football programs willingly signed up for this business. But I was looking at this earlier today. Once we get to mid-October and we get a couple of these West Coast Big Ten teams coming off short weeks, and they're going to Rutgers, and they're going to Maryland, and you're going to see a spread at like USC 18.5, and they're just going to lay an egg and lose to Maryland, then you're going to hear about body clocks.
Matt, thank you, man. Appreciate your time. Great stuff. Again, I've mentioned and I recommend the newsletter, EA Sports. It was one of the ones that came out this week, the 5 storylines. Matt, thank you very much for your time.
Let me ask Matt, though. I got a follow-up. Like, UK,
yeah.
You said, how much time are people going to spend on the video game now that there's real games going on? Well, just as a control group, how much are you going to now? Because you spent a lot. And now you've been engrossed in this.
So, I have.
Yeah.
You should not use me as a control group for anything. But because here's the thing, guys, I can lie. I can lie to myself. This is for work. I'm on the sticks right now. This is for content. Yep. This is for serious professional research. But even then, I will definitely play less, and because I'm watching football for 12 hours a day on Saturday. I'm writing all day Sunday. My kids are in school. I got stuff going on. I think it's the folks younger than me that are at a different stage in their life that can grind more than I can here at my advanced age.
Grind.
I love that.
I like that you've given them that compliment that's what this is. So.
That's what this is. Yeah, they're in the content mines. They're grinding away.
So I can tell my wife, like, can you write me up like just a script of like I need this for work, because so far I've yet to really sell her on it.
You know, tell you what, after Labor Day, I'll get in the lab, I'll get in the Photoshop, we'll make a nice certificate, we'll stick it on the newsletter or something saying like you can use this to your spouses, your doctors, your ecclesiastical authorities. You have my permission.
Okay, there we go.
All right, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it
All right.
always, Matt.
Take care,
my
friends.
Friend Matt Brown, extra points with us today. So Sam Codd, Max Olson, Matt Brown with us right here on 365 Sports. We have Craig's Off the Radar around the corner. Paul's Top 5 at the end. Ren Baker, Director of Athletics at West Virginia, on their weekend and atmosphere. He was doing one interview after another and gave us a little bit of time, and we'll have that today in the 5 o'clock hour, and we appreciate his time. That's going to be such a Joey Foster. I texted him. He is so pumped up. And I just asked him about, hey, I just was telling him we have Ren Baker today. And next thing you know, here's a text about this long about what matters and what they're good at, or the keys to the game. He is pumped up for West Virginia football, and good for him. Glad he is in that position. By the way, that Texas Beef House live auction closes at 6. Paul, you and Jack are still involved or not?
We are. I'm not going to say which lots we're bidding on, because I don't want somebody to be like, oh, I want to ruin Paul's day. You know, I don't want one of these like, you know, FSU haters to lump me in with the rest of us, you know, and try to steal my beef.
Right now, there are some what they call dinner party lots, and one of them is 2 ribeyes, 2 nice thick fillets, and a tomahawk ribeye. That's the dinner party box. That's available. And then, of course, they have hamburger patty, ground hamburger, and everything else in between. Flat iron steak. It's available. Go to texasbeefhouse.com or bidonbeef.com. It ends at about 6 or however long that it eventually is extended.
I've made bids on 2 similar lots. And if I get them both, then I'm just going to have to take that lump. I'm fine with it. You know, we'll figure out a way to cook all this meat. But I'm trying to guard myself against somebody like swooping in on one of them right at the end.
Oh, you have no idea what's about to happen.
Oh, I think I do. I've been on eBay, you know, in my life, and I know how this works. And I do know that there's somebody who has an alarm on their watch set for 5:56 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to go.
Not just that, 5:56 in like 47 seconds.
Yeah, that's how I lost the first bid 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, they're just going to wait.
So I don't mind, like, for example, a bid for, let's say, 6 pounds of steak. That is at $25 or $22 a pound. It's like $150-something. You win it, great. You get. By the way, those are Wagyu fillets, Wagyu ribeyes, and a Wagyu tomahawk is in one of the boxes.
I'll just tell you that when I was in college and eBay first came around, my roommates and I got a little bit hooked on it, because you could get, like, at the beginning of eBay, and it's still kind of this way, but you could get cool beer stuff for your house for cheaper than you would normally get it if you were just like gone and found it. And the joy in my house when we found a Jimmy Buffett neon Corona sign for like $49 that was like, you know, valued at $150, and we got it right at the end, was quickly repelled by the matching light, the Bud Light sign we were going to get that had to go in the spot, which I can't remember what it had on it, but it was really awesome. And we didn't get it, and it was because we were like, all right, 10, 9, 8, son of a.
Yeah, like
Gone.
alert. Yeah.
Gone.
I tried to buy it old. This was like, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to buy like a Earl Campbell jersey one time. That was my only foray really on eBay, and I had that happen. I wasn't familiar enough and had it swooped out from underneath me, swept out from underneath me like right at the very last second, and I was like, this isn't for me. I was like, this isn't for me. I don't have the patience or tolerance for this, so I did not get that Earl Campbell jersey. I got one like it though later on, like a baby blue, type of jersey. So
the Oilers.
Yeah. I was not buying a Texas jersey, obviously, but
I'll never forget when I visited Earl one time at his house down in Austin. He has cabinets filled with untouched jerseys.
There's something I need to know about him is I don't know how popular they are now. I think they're still plenty popular, but Funkos, you have some like the little figurines.
Oh yeah.
And they do everything. I mean everything. Anime, old school cartoons, sports, everything they have. They do like NFL Legends. I've never seen an Earl one though, because I would buy it in 2 seconds. And I just wonder what his like how they pick and choose the licensing, because he seems like he would be a no-brainer for something like that.
He is incredibly smart with the marketing. I know he goes to a lot of autograph shows or whatever. But he has all these jerseys in various cabinets and shelves in his house.
I started to collect.
John, you gave me.
Yes, I started to collect those a little bit, and I wanted to get an Earl one, and I could never find one.
There are people selling the Bevo like Hook'em Funko Pops with Earl's autograph on it, but they still don't have one for Earl. So it's like a Longhorns Funko Pop.
How much is that one? Just particular what you said, Earl's autographed the Funko.
Let's see, $200.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't even want it autographed. I just wanted the figurine just to kind of put with my Adrian Peterson one, my East Texas guys. But AD, I've got a Vikings one of him. I don't think they've dabbled much in college though.
No, I don't know if they have or not. I'm not sure if that's still kind of a license
I bet you
thing.
we're about to.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, now everything. I mean, trading cards and all that stuff. I mean, there's been that stuff in years past, but now, like, really with the ability to license the players' names, we're going to see more college-specific merchandise than we've ever seen before. And that's overdue as well, so I'm all for that.
Retired stockbroker, the best auction advice I can give, time is of the essence and mum's the word.
Yeah, no, that's for sure.
Yep, and every time somebody outbids you or you outbid somebody else, the clock goes for another 2 minutes. So even if you think, like you mentioned eBay, 7 seconds left, even if you like somebody outbids you, you have 2 minutes. The clock starts back up again.
Yeah, I don't like. We couldn't auction for steaks back in college, which is good because it's way more expensive than the kick-ass Jimmy Buffett neon that we got.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yep.
I will tell you what my mother said when she walked in. She's like, "What's that?" I was like, "Well, it's a college house, Mom. That's what you have to fit in." I will also say I do remember I had an original Tommy Boy poster, Chris Farley, David Spade, one of the most funny movies ever. And I had that. It was in my room forever. It was up in my office I think it was hanging in my office when you guys were doing the thing. And then when Amanda moved in, she was like, yeah, let's get rid of some of this stuff. And like when we threw away the Tommy Boy poster because the frame had kind of broken, like my thought was like, you don't know what I went through to get this thing.
Oh, yeah,
Like so it was hours of monitoring eBay.
So you said no.
No, I mean, the frame had been damaged, so it was over.
We got a break. Craig Smoak off the radar. Ren Baker around the corner and much, much more. College football, baby. First full weekend after some of the games from last weekend, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. A lot of people, when they go to watch, whether it's college football and eventually starting late next week, the NFL, you want to eat pizza, want to eat chicken wings, want to have something delivered to you, Marco's Pizza can do that. The fastest growing pizza brand in America. Bob Mock has 5 stores in Waco. And again, because it's the fastest growing pizza brand in America, there are many different Marco's Pizzas to a place near you. So if you want to, for example, we're closing this down at just after 6, got a couple of promos to do. Head to the house if you wanted to have a pizza pretty much right after you got there. Marco's will deliver. You want wings? They have that too. Salad, sandwiches, soft drinks too. Marco's Pizza, 5 locations in Waco, but you can go online to get it delivered to you or pick it up on the way home, marcos.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year, it's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, welcome to Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:45. Take a look in at just a grab bag of headlines or things of interest that we might not otherwise get to or have much time to spend on. And we got a good little grab bag of things today. It's definitely getting easier to find juicy stuff for this segment because of just all that's going on with the start of this actually feels like the start of the year to me.
Yeah.
Like, I know January 1st is technically this, but this actually feels like the start of the year in so many ways to me. Just like the way my life is programmed. This is the ball getting to really start rolling.
I think
it's the ball drop on New Year's Eve.
I think the end of the year to us is like the end of basketball season. Like, that's when it's like,
it is.
You know, like, and then
the summer starts kind of after spring ball, I guess. I guess that's for most people, but it feels like we're restarting here.
Yeah. So,
well, like both of you and Garrett, in fact, all of you have quit high school football. This is my last football season on the show.
I've heard that.
Go ahead, Craig.
From
I'm sorry.
day one.
No, go.
Yeah, I said that earlier. I was being serious. Like, this is really my last football season. Yeah. I'm not kidding. But all right, let's get into some topics here. I did want to shout out West Virginia again. Like, just so amped up for what they're going to have cooking this Saturday with the big game against Penn State. And we talked a bit about how McAfee is going to be there tomorrow hosting this show. That place is going to be just off the wall crazy, I would imagine. But just for clarification's sake, we brought up yesterday that they had announced that they were closing schools in Morgantown, and that was something that Coos, our man from West Virginia, who does a very good job covering the Mountaineers and the Big 12 and everything, check him out. He sent me the link that we were kind of talking about, but you've since corrected me. The schools in Morgantown are not closed.
Well,
is that correct?
Well, because I interviewed Ren Baker.
And you're going to hear that here in a few minutes.
And we'll have that after this segment. And the atmosphere and all that. But I asked him about he had mentioned the fact that it's going to be packed, and he said, yeah, including the county schools around this area. All the county schools have shut down for tomorrow. There won't be any school to help alleviate some of the traffic. And I asked him, I clarified that. I said, have you canceled classes? And he said, no, I don't have that kind of authority. The guy in the bow tie does. He was referring to E. Gordon Gee, the president, but said at that particular time, which is about 4 hours ago, that he had not done that yet.
Okay, so West Virginia University has not canceled, but as
the classes on campus go on as scheduled.
But in the city, they're canceled.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's what. Okay, that's. I was thinking you were saying like the surrounding county schools, and I was like, well, that doesn't make much sense. But just the university has not. Okay, well, that's their prerogative, and I'm sure there's a lot of disappointed students. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people missing in class tomorrow. Is what I expect will happen. But I was got that note from Kuz I mentioned. He also added this little note. I don't know how many Machine Gun Kelly fans there are in the room or watching online, but he is also going to be performing at the Big Noon Kickoff show in Morgantown coming up on Saturday. So you're going to have a little bit of a performance of MGK. So it's a big weekend in Morgantown, and I was just going to pass along that little note of just another little layer of entertainment and spice to this weekend's festivities. And man alive, if they find a way to win that game, that is going to be just one of the most unique places on earth on Saturday night, that's for sure.
Smokey, if I told you have 20 seconds to tell us everything you know about Machine Gun Kelly, would 20 seconds be too much?
He's a singer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Other people would probably say Megan
rapper?
Fox.
Is he a rapper?
He's a singer and a rapper at this point in his career, yeah.
Okay.
But, that was just a thing that Kuz had mentioned.
Is he the one that killed Dillinger?
No,
that was the gangster Machine Gun Kelly, who's been long passed away, so it'd be really odd. Although he could hologram, I guess it would just be a weird fit for Big Noon Kickoff. But no, so MGK will be performing, and I was just clarifying on the school thing as much as anything because I know we'll hear that from Ren Baker coming up. But here's a few other notes that are ongoing right now that are of interest. I did look into the UCF uniforms. We got past that yesterday, and I didn't have a lot to say on them other than just at first glance, I liked them. I thought they looked really sharp, the all black, but I did want to go and see what the breakdown of the details were on their school website, and also UniWatch does a really good job with that. And really the main things that are different, these are actually uniforms they've worn before as far as like the jerseys and the pants. What's really different here are the helmets. The helmets have some details that are different. The version that they wore previously had black face masks. These have white face masks. The bumper on the back's different than the bumper they were wearing before. But the bumper with Orlando on the front and kind of the A arch is a very, very cool look. The face mask is obviously different. But the jerseys were actually something that they've already sported before, apparently. And they wore those in 2023. So there might be some subtle differences, but I went and looked at them and checked them out a little bit for the uniform guy who passed that information along to us, knowing I'd be of interest. Right. I appreciate that, and I'll definitely be paying attention when they rock these. But yeah, it turns out those weren't brand new. There's a playoff of uniforms they've worn before and just made some little tweaks here and there, but I do appreciate that. All right, to some news. The Commanders are going to build a statue of Sean Taylor. Did we talk about this already?
Yes. Well, we slightly. We just kind of glossed over it, yes.
Okay, so you guys remember last year they did the installation that was the tribute, and it was the most half-assed thing you've ever seen. I mean, it looked like somebody basically got coat hangers and put together a tribute to Sean Taylor. Well, the Commanders are going to build a statue after unveiling that memorial a couple of years ago. The first former player to be memorialized with a statue, his daughter, Jackie, who is now 18, she was 18 months old when he passed away in November of 2007. She's now playing volleyball as a freshman at North Carolina. That's how crazy fast time goes by. But I think I might have mentioned this. I saw more details after the fact. She has been involved. The family's been involved in this go-around. They have said they appreciate the effort that was put forth with that installation originally, and they were about as classy as you could possibly be and not like saying, yeah, that sucked and we needed to do something different. But they are going to be building a statue for Sean Taylor, and that's just another one of those changes that's ongoing with the Washington franchise now under their new ownership. And I look forward to seeing them unveil it. But they're also going to be retiring Darryl Green's number 28 at halftime in Week 7 against the Panthers. And so there's a lot of good going on right now. Well, and I think the Sean Taylor statue, like, do you guys remember when that got unveiled?
Oh, yeah.
That was the most half-assed garbage tribute.
Yeah.
No offense,
surprising.
but like, man, when you saw that, there was no other way to feel than to be completely just let down when you saw that. So they're correcting that error with the blessing of the family and handling it in a really classy way. And I can't wait. I was a huge Sean Taylor fan, and we'll always wonder what if.
I got to see him play in college a couple times. He's one of the best football players I've ever laid eyes on. In person.
Oh, he's a dude, man.
He was just so good. He hit Chris Rick so hard, I'm surprised he didn't crap his pants. I mean, really.
Remember the Pro Bowl game?
Oh, dear God. Yeah.
A punter.
Yeah. And I I really like Josh Harris has nowhere to go but up. Like all he has to do is be a reasonably polite human being.
Yeah.
And he's better than Dan Snyder. And I love all this. I cannot believe, Smokey, that Darryl Green's number is not retired.
Well, they did something with him. It was recently. He was there for a promotion, and then everybody walked in the room, and I thought they were going to do that.
That's when they announced it, I think, is when they told him they were going to do that.
No, so
but still, it's taken up. Like,
no,
the guy hasn't played in 20 years.
Yeah,
No, they brought him in to do it. And like the NFL teams have done this a few times with different guys. They brought him in to like do a video that's going to play on the Jumbotron or whatever. And then that's when they unveil like, surprise, watch this video. And it's actually to tell you that you're getting your number retired. And he got very emotional. But it's just one of those righting wrongs, I think, that Josh Harris is doing that was not going on. Like, so, for example, the tribute to Sean Taylor, they're getting that right. It wasn't good enough. They're going to make it right. They haven't decided when that's going to be unveiled, but it might coincide with the new stadium. So I think those details will be learned. But retiring Darryl Green's number, like, how was that not already done? Putting the graphics on the walls of the former players, like not scurrying away from their past. I just think all that's very refreshing, and it just makes you realize of just what horrid ownership they had for so long with Dan Snyder.
Darryl Green, one of my favorite of all time, had a chance to interview him a handful of times, but it's weird is that, he was going to be inducted to the High School Hall of Fame in Texas, and he just didn't want to come down here. He just wasn't.
Okay.
He's kind of,
who knows what his experiences were.
That was sad because I haven't seen him in a long time, of course, but I was hoping that he was inducted, but it was weird. He just kind of zoned out on wanting to come down here.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows? Maybe he's.
But the Redskins retiring his number is so way overdue.
Commanders,
Commanders. Yep, sorry, it's so way overdue that it doesn't surprise.
Yeah, so I just circle back to that because it's been so long since I actually talked positively about the team that I root for that it's just refreshing when I see things that are no-brainers that are occurring under the new watch. So yeah, you're retiring Darryl Green's number, you're building a Sean Taylor statue, and I just think there's a good feeling surrounding the team at the moment. So we'll see how that translates to the field. Some sports media and NFL news. Bill Belichick. If you've watched a little bit of him and liked what you've seen as far as him being an analyst, being a guest on various shows, you're going to see a lot more of that. He did an interview with McAfee a while back, and they basically came to an agreement that he was going to be a regular guest on the show. Well, ESPN announced during their own media day that Belichick is going to be a featured guest on all 11 Monday Night Football Manning casts. He'll also be a co-host of a new companion studio show with Peyton Manning. And he will also be a weekly guest, as I mentioned, on the Pat McAfee show every Monday. So he'll be able to talk about the NFL weekend and then preview the Monday night game. But his Manning cast appearances will be in the first half each Monday night. And that's going to be part of his Manning deal. The other part will be that studio show that I mentioned with he and Peyton Manning called The Breakdown. And that will air the Friday before the week that they do the 11 Manning cast. So if there's a Manning cast coming up the Friday before, they'll have the breakdown with Belichick and Manning. So he's getting into media, and I thought I've seen some stuff, and I was interested in what he had to say. So I'm interested to see more.
I think he has a good sense of humor that people never realized. Well, kind of like Saban, we've seen that with him. Yeah.
I bet you he never leaves. I'm going to tell you right now, he is going to, because this guy has grinded for 50 years of coaching. Mm-hmm. Just down and down and down. And he's going to get there. They're going to be paying him crap tons of money.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
So he's going to be making a lot of money. And then somebody's going to call him and go, hey, Bill, do you want to come coach the Broncos? And he's going to be like, no.
Not really.
No interest.
The media, they get paid a lot, these former players and coaches. You know that you mentioned
the Manning
cast.
He also has a 26-year-old girlfriend now, and I don't think the coaching grind, he can keep up with that. So
the Manning cast. Well, I watched it the first time they did it, and I loved it, and I haven't watched it since. I wonder if they spend too much time sometimes with the guest and not just being themselves watching football.
Yeah, for me, I don't really care about the guests. I like watching them just talk and watch the game. So oftentimes I've tuned in, and hey, if you're into that, then great. They have really good guests. It's just that that's not what I'm tuning in for. So yeah, that's definitely detracted me from watching probably more of it. But they have a massive audience. Peyton Manning's the Omaha Productions things just seems to keep getting bigger and bigger, and so you're going to get a heavy dose of Bill Belichick, and the timing-wise is interesting because we're also going to get a lot of Nick Saban on the college side of things. So you got the GOATs that are just now going to be like big, massive pieces of the media this football season. That's going to be very interesting.
I sent you guys the commercial with Nick Saban at Verbo, whatever. Did you guys watch that? He is just the best.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah.
He's the best.
I always knew he'd be good at it. He did a game day commercial years ago, where they were like doing the prep and – he eats the Little Debbie. He likes oatmeal cream pies, and he has some in his desk, and he like dropped it on the floor, and Corso was like, "Oh, coach, you can't eat that." And he waited for them to turn around, and he like just put the whole thing in his mouth.
He's got a great sense of humor, and that's what Belichick does too.
Just a couple of other notes here. I want to squeeze in this one NBA note because it's just a ridiculous thing to say, but that's the world we live in now. Steph Curry has agreed to a small extension that will keep him with Golden State through the 26-27 season. Steph, obviously, 1 year, 26-27. Well, he has 2 years remaining on his contract. So this is just in addition to those 2 years. He's 36 years old. So he's got 3 years left on this contract now with the extension. Did you see what the extension was? 1 year.
50?
$62.6 million.
That's just...
1 year, $62.6 million for Steph. And with the other 2 years that he already had remaining, and now with this on top of that, he has $178 million guaranteed over the 3 years now remaining on his deal. That's just crazy.
Even with taxes in California, even with everything else.
And I don't even know how much like with Texas property taxes now, like I don't know how much of an advantage Texas has as much as they even used to in that regard. But yeah, California is obviously, they pinch you pretty good.
And then remember the rule of when you go to other states that have income tax, you got to pay those states when you play there.
Yeah.
But boo-hoo, you have 45 million versus like 75 million or whatever.
If you see the money, it's supply
well, the
and
NBA
demand,
TV
baby.
deal and just the popularity and the amount of volume of games they have. So yeah, I wanted to say 1 year, $62.6 million. And one of my favorite moments though was him at the Olympics this past year, especially in was that the semifinal game
against
I forget.
Australia? No.
No, it was against the guy who's won NBA,
it was against
MVP.
Jokic and company.
Yeah.
Serbia,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was a very. I think that was maybe the top moment of the Olympics if you were to poll people. It was definitely in the very top tier of just the most patriotic USA moments.
Don't discredit Sidney McLaughlin anything.
Okay,
I'm kidding.
Simone Biles, right. But I just think the Steph thing that kind of transcended because of the following that he has.
It was electric.
Yeah,
I loved listening to it on the Serbian.
Well, it went away. They did maybe it was the French. It was the French broadcast after the championship game. You could not find because somebody grabbed it, and obviously Americans were having a lot of fun with it because the French were losing their minds over Steph Curry making all these shots, and it was just. Like, it was cool to be able to root for him. It was funny to hear foreign announcers, just so flummoxed by the magic of Steph Curry. But they, copyrighted it pretty quickly, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was amazing there. All right, final couple of notes. Some starting quarterbacks are being named in the NFL. Jacoby Brissett has been named the Week 1 starter for the New England Patriots. He gets the job over Drake May, their young rookie. And also... the Steelers have unsurprisingly named Russell Wilson their starting quarterback. He beats out Justin Fields and I believe also Sean Leahy as well to get that job, which is not a surprise after they brought him in. Basically beat, I think maybe Leahy's
Where
not
did
even
Leahy play
guy.
College ball?
I think that's the writer, actually. I had it copy and pasted, so that's my fault. But, yeah, he beat out Justin Fields for that. I was like, that doesn't sound familiar. But that's why. So, yeah, he beat out Justin Fields. That should not come as a surprise. So, Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. officially the starter, and I'll leave it there. Those are a few things off the radar.
All right, you want a couple other notes? This is while you were doing that. Johnny Manziel will be the guest picker. Notre Dame and A&M. If you think about the year he won it, he won the Heisman Trophy. Manti Te'o was second, Notre Dame. And Colin Klein, Kansas State, who's now the A&M offensive coordinator, finished third. So that's just a nugget right there.
Do you think, like, when he sees Johnny walking around, he's like, son of a...
Yeah, well, Colin Klein may have lost the Heisman Trophy at Waco.
Yeah, I still don't think that. I think it was a one-person. Like, I never thought Manti or Colin were going to get it that year. I mean, Johnny beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa.
No, yeah, I think when he did that early in the year, it was over. Like, he just, you had to just make sure he stayed on between the lines, and in a way he did. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. Craig Smoak off the radar, and every Tuesday and Thursday at around 4:45 on 365 Sports. One high school note, it starts tonight in Texas, high school games throughout the state. In Hamilton, Texas tonight, there's a game between Frost and Winters called the Ice Bowl.
It'll be 103 degrees.
Yes, in Hamilton, which is not that far from here, really. It's just a little bit northwest or west of us. The Frost Polar Bears and the Winters Blizzards will play in the Ice Bowl. They're going to meet around halfway in between. And I've driven through Hamilton. It was a horrible mistake. And good for them to play that game. Remember we mentioned Billings, Montana with those players and teams up in.
We got caught on cattle auction day, and it was like a street festival downtown.
Was that when I was doing the rental car?
Yeah, we were in
from Midland?
The Volkswagen piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's when we were there.
Volkswagen was up for a nice sponsorship.
Well, I mean, hopefully it's not a Touareg because that thing almost got us stuck.
Yeah. In fact, remember the
between Abilene and
the 18-wheeler got mad at me because I took a left to circumvent the traffic. All right. When we come back, there's a hell of a game in Morgantown, West Virginia. We've discussed it with a lot of our analysts. We've discussed it too. Would be a monstrous win for Neil Brown and also the Mountaineers and the conference if that could happen. Penn State, West Virginia. What has it been like the last few hours and also into the weekend with West Virginia Director of Athletics, Ren Baker? This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943. You know, you think about all these teams. We were talking about the transfer portal where coaches in the spring say, man, they would rather the transfer portal not be at the end of spring because that's when you build your team. That's when you figure out who you have coming back for the following season. And when I heard about the word build, that's what the product you get at Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Beautiful, thousands and thousands of square feet of brand new building that was opened up in December of 2022 with pipe, steel, metal, and all the components you ever need to build anything. And of course, they have now even more efficiency, and they always had pretty good efficiency when it comes to loading up this heavy equipment into your pickup truck, 18-wheeler, hauler, whatever it might be. Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943 and finally moved into a new building because it was just time. They had outgrown what they had, but they still, the fundamentals of a handshake with you, the customer, generations of families at Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal's.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
How's it going?
As if you have nothing else to do.
You know, hey, sometimes you just when you have a big deal, you just drop everything to do it.
Well,
and you're a big deal.
Well, I thought you were talking about the game, but my God, thank you very much, or Pat McAfee. We are at 365 Sports. We love you to death. We know that, and what a weekend, Ren. I've watched some of your timeline on Twitter. Can you explain the anticipation, the passion, the atmosphere, the views right now on your campus?
Well, you know, college game days are special in every location, but the Big 12 has just a collection of some great college towns, and I would put Morgantown at the top of that list. Our state, there are no pro teams. We're the only power conference team in the state, and so everybody follows the Mountaineers intensely. And that passion is there all the time, but we, you know, coming off a year like we had last year where, you know, we won 9 games, we won a bowl game. There's a lot of anticipation, and then kicking off with Penn State, who's ranked in the top 10. And then, you know, Fox coming in here to do the game with their big noon show. And then the McAfee announcement just kind of put it over the edge. So, you know, the traffic is going to be incredible. The attendance will be incredible. The energy incredible. Hopefully the businesses will make a lot of money. The weather will stay nice, and the Mountaineers will get a win.
So when you took this job, and you have been around Missouri, North Texas, so you've been around college athletics, was this one of the reasons why you took a place like West Virginia on and wanted to experience what you are right now this weekend, and hopefully for West Virginia and the Mountaineers and Neil Brown and everyone else for the rest of the school year?
Yeah, it is. You know, I knew I'd never been to Morgantown. I'd only been in the state one time. And so really my knowledge of West Virginia started for the most part with them coming into the Big 12, and only then knew what I'd seen on TV with game days and stuff. But I actually talked to Mac Rhodes about it, Joe Castiglione, several ADs I have friends with who had traveled here and just spoke so highly of it. And you know, when I was interviewing for the job, they told me how much it means to the people here. And, you know, you work at a lot of universities, and I always feel like every time you go to a new place, and this is my 6th, everybody tells you how unique their place is. And I've always felt like, yeah, there's some uniqueness to each place, but more or less you change logos on your polo shirt, but the job is kind of pretty much the same. But it is different here in that this is the first place I've worked where there really is no competition. We have the strongest market share. I think the only two places that are really similar would be Arkansas and Nebraska. Just everybody, their hopes and dreams and morale are intertwined with this team. And so as I tell our student athletes and even recruits, it's a great privilege. It's also a great responsibility. But it's awesome to see the energy that comes with it. They announced last night that all of the county public schools are not going to have school on Friday because of the anticipated traffic and trying to get those kids home to school and home after school. And so that just tells you kind of the volume of people that are coming in for this game. I suspect we'll have 10, 15, 20,000 people in the parking lots that day that don't actually have tickets to the game, but just want to be a part of the atmosphere.
Well, so you have an alum, a guy that has exploded nationally in recent years, the broadcast and his show with Pat McAfee, who's a part of Game Day. The relationship with him in West Virginia, how important is that for it to get better? And is this part of that where you're reaching out and he's reaching out to try to get him on campus tomorrow for what will be a monstrous event?
Yeah. So, for a few years, I think not just Pat, but several of his teammates and friends maybe that were on the team, they didn't feel as appreciated and welcome back. And I don't know all the reasons for that because I know Mountaineer Nation and our staff here in the athletic department love that era. I mean, when you talk about Pat White and Steve Slayton and Owen Schmidt and those are names that just, during that era those were incredible teams. And I actually was a big fan of those teams back then, even in the way they played, even though I didn't know much about West Virginia. And so I think, just Neil, Coach Brown's done a really good job of trying to welcome those guys and being engaged. One of the first outreaches I made when I got the job was to some of our foreign players, and Pat was certainly one of the top of that list. But I tell you, another big help is Blaine Stewart's on our staff, and his father, Bill Stewart, was a coach here, recruited and coached some of these guys. And Coach Stewart passed away a few years ago, but they have such admiration and respect for him. And Blaine was almost like a kid brother to him. And Blaine's done a great job of being a conduit to get those guys back and make them feel welcome. And so that's been a process. But one thing that Pat McAfee's never shied away from is how much he loves Morgantown, how much he loves West Virginia, and how much the program meant to him. And so I told him multiple times, I told him in the last few days, his unapologetic love and unbridled passion for his alma mater, that's worth so much earned media for us because of the demographic that watches his show religiously. And so we're very appreciative of that, and we're excited about the energy that him coming here brings to campus.
Well, he shut that. You mentioned the schools, the county schools. Is school in session tomorrow, or is that also something that they're worried about, the congestion on campus?
It is in session right now. When I tweeted something about the public schools being canceled and everybody started coming at me to cancel WVU, I don't have that power. So I passed that hot potato very quickly onto my bow-tied friend, Dr. Gordon Gee, who's the president. So he has not indicated that he's going to cancel classes, but if he does, he can be a hero. I told him, I said, you can prove that not all heroes wear capes, some wear bow ties. So we'll see what he does.
So obviously at this time last year, there was the unknown, Ren, because of the team the year before, and everyone, and Neil, man, at Big 12 Media Days in July up in Arlington, had the biggest chip I've ever seen in a coach. And a lot of times coach make that up, but he was mad and he was frustrated and he was also hurt as the program. And then they had the year. And now the expectations are what West Virginia football is supposed to be. How much of a transformation have you seen with the program, the momentum? And from the time you arrived, when you took over, it was kind of up in the air, and now where they are now?
Yeah, Coach Brown's done a great job of keeping that group of young men focused on what's important and rallied around proving people wrong. And, that was hard last year because there had been so much negativity in and around the coverage of the program, and he felt like we had a pretty good chance to be competitive last year. And when those preseason publications come out and you're picked last, and that's when you take 4 new teams into the league, and 4 of them coming from a group of 5, and you're picked last, it was just another thing that kind of stirred everybody up and was negative. And so I think for a lot of reasons, that he and I were both surprised and not real pleased, but you have to go out and prove people wrong, and that's the great thing about sports is it's not what people expect of you, it's not what people predict of you. There's a metric out there on that scoreboard every Saturday. You got to go out and prove it, and he did a really, really good job of using that as motivation for the team, but also breathing confidence in them, helping them come together. And that's continued, and that momentum's continued. And I always say momentum is the most powerful thing in sports, but it's also the most fragile, right?
Yep.
So, you're fighting to keep that every day, and confidence when you have that, it's such a powerful thing. But when you lose it, it also it becomes something that can take you the other way. So he does a great job of keeping them grounded, not letting them get too high or too low, reminding them how they got here, the chip on their shoulder, working hard. But it is awesome to see the fan base rally. Somebody asked me the other day, does the momentum from last season, has that brought out the fans? And I said, the fans are with us.
Yep.
I always say we have 1.8 million people. We got 1.6 million hanging on every possession. I mean, they're watching it in southern West Virginia, even if they hadn't been to a game in a decade. They're tuned in and watching. But what it does, it compels people to come out, and that excitement and enthusiasm has definitely been very, very helpful.
Last thing, Ren Baker, Director of Athletics at West Virginia, Penn State, West Virginia, Saturday. What a moment and what a game. And it's a football game. But do you think at some point during that game, while you're up in the suite or press box or on the field, that you'll be able to kind of like look out towards what's going on, and especially if it's a good win, a great game and a nice win. But will you have time to look out, take a deep breath, take it all in, and enjoy?
I will. So I'll walk the tailgates a little bit on Saturday. I probably won't go into the blue light. They're probably they probably pregame a little hard for my taste. But I'll go out to the tailgate some. But I definitely a lot of times. So we have something here we call the man trip, and we let our student athletes off by the Children's Hospital, and thousands and thousands of fans congregate and welcome them into the stadium and line up there. And the kids up in the Children's Hospital can watch from their windows.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. And so I usually, that's one of those moments that I always take in. I'll go and at the top of the stadium, I kind of greet the kids, our student athletes, as they walk in, but I also just watch that mayhem that unfolds during that. And then last year, we had a game a lot like this with Pitt in the backyard brawl, first time we'd had on our campus, and it was a Saturday night game, and we opened the tailgate lots. And there's one RV lot that opens Friday morning, and I'll never forget this. On Thursday night, I got a call, and the Highway Patrol needed us to start letting people in because we were blocking the interstate exit, which is about 2 miles from the Coliseum. Which is one of our RV lots, and they were like, "Hey, you're creating an issue here," so we had to open the lot 12 hours early. And so it just, those are moments where you realize, okay, this is a little different. This is a statewide entertainment engagement. I mean, we'll be the largest city in the state, and Milan Puskar Stadium will be on Saturday. So, that you think about the magnitude of that. And it's pretty special, and I do try and take a moment or two to take it in. And if we're fortunate to come out victorious, I always love and appreciate singing Country Roads after a win, but that one will probably be one of the more memorable ones.
Absolutely. Ren, thank you so much. Appreciate our friendship, and also the fact that we've worked together. Watch what you've done. Enjoy the moment. McAfee back on campus is huge, and that's great that you're healing some of that, because that happens at a lot of campuses that people may not realize with former athletes as there are coaching transitions. Congratulations, but I know you want me to say that to you after Saturday's game too. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck to everybody in the Big 12.
Ren Baker, Director of Athletics at West Virginia 365 Sports.
S. Michael DeHart in the chat room. Let's go Mountaineers with the blue and the gold heart. Ready for that throwdown in Motown. Thanks for having him on today. Go Mountaineers. Joey Foster, I told you. I just said, Joey, hey, by the way, I'm recording Ren Baker, and then I got like a preview. And he is so pumped up among many other Paul the Mountaineer fan. Cousins corner, obviously, Craig, you brought him up earlier. They all love the Mountaineers. All right, when we come back, we look at the Pod 3 of the Big 12. We've looked at 8 teams and who they play this weekend and a couple of nuggets about each one of them. We'll do that tonight with 4 more. That's next. 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown local butcher shop and also bakery. They also are your home for what you need when it comes to tailgating, no matter where you're going to a game this weekend. Obviously, Baylor's at home, and then wherever you might be going down to Austin to watch Colorado State and Texas or A&M against Notre Dame. Charcoal and pellet fuel. They have a smokehouse box available this week for $70 for a choice brisket, 1 whole chicken, and 5 pounds of Smoky Ridge hot links. That's at Waco Custom Marketplace. They're open until the afternoon closes down on Saturday. But this is something you can get. They're open until 6 tonight, and then again tomorrow until 6 as well. They also have, for example, 15 pounds of imported catfish fillets, chicken thighs, bone-in pork butt, Wagyu ribeye steaks, and New York strip steaks, which reminds me, if you want to do that, it doesn't have to be for a tailgate. It could be for you tonight or at any time that you want. And 10% off all charcoal and pellet fuel. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, full-service butcher shop and bakery, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
It helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com. Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Ouch. 365 Sports, we head into 5 consecutive days.
What?
Look, You've
here's-
never heard of a recording studio?
I do. It happens with you a lot lately. So I'm just as your son is here, and we're family at this point. I'm gonna get Jennifer here, and we're gonna let you pick out the home you want to live in while you're still able to.
I've already done that as Jennifer's.
Yeah. They would not mind if I did that. The problem is that I go into a house and I just torch their kitchen, and their place is pristine, and they enjoy the food, but I absolutely destroy a kitchen. So, all right. You've never heard like a recording?
No, I've heard it. It just happens.
Testing.
It's happened 3 times today with you.
Today with my headset?
Yeah, it has.
I didn't hear I just heard that
But
one.
the other 2 times you were taking them off, and we still had ours on. So
Well, one because Garrett was late with the switch. No, yeah, there was one today. You were. All right, now, here are the pods. Oh, we're in pod 3. I don't like the way these pods were put together, but I've said that a lot. Pod 3 includes UCF, Houston, Cincinnati, and BYU. There's no rhyme or reason other than all 4 joined the Big 12 at the same time.
Yeah, they just all came to the league at the exact same moment, and therefore we all remember them the same way, which is why we lump them together in this third pod. For those that haven't been tuning in, we're breaking down 4 pods, 4 teams, covering all 16 Big 12 schools once a day. We didn't start on Monday. We will next week, though, so that it'll hit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're all here. But it's just an easy way to have a few thoughts on every single one of the games as opposed to trying to, spend a lot of time on each one of them. And this way everybody gets talked about at least once a week as far as their matchup goes. So, yeah, it's time for the quartet that came in last year and debuted from the American and the independent scene. And let's get into it here.
All right, we will do that right now. UCF tonight, they play. We've heard about Kansas and Colorado playing tonight. 4 Big 12 teams because Utah's playing too. But UCF at home against New Hampshire.
Yeah, this should be an easy win for the Knights. They should cruise to 1-0. I'm just really excited to see that rushing attack and what that looks like. That's been the big buzz surrounding them since they went and grabbed Penny Boone and KJ Jefferson from the transfer portal, pairing them with RJ Harvey. They were very close to winning 9 games last year, guys. Mm-hmm. They had 3 games. They lost by a total of 4 points and in conference. And we know one of those was the Baylor game that they had absolutely no rhyme or reason to lose other than they just threw up all over themselves. And that's one there that you look at the end of the road and you're talking about 2 or 3 extra wins. Now, there was a game or 2 where you could say, well, that goes the other way. But point is they were clearly the best of these 4 teams last year in their debut seasons. The only one to make a bowl game, right? Houston didn't, BYU didn't, and Cincinnati didn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they were by far the most successful, and they had an opportunity to be even better if some things didn't, go off the rails like the Baylor game. So, yeah, I think they're going to be plenty competitive. I'm not confident enough to put them in like that top tier, but, man, when you talk about like who could jump up and jump into that thing or be better than even expected, even though you expect them to be pretty good, I think UCF's a great candidate for that. I'm really interested in them, and especially that rushing attack. So, yeah, they should cruise tonight.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what KJ Jefferson does in that offense. RJ Harvey, Kobe Hudson, like they've got a lot of big play makers there. They've got to be better in the front this year, stopping the run. A defensive tackle, linebacker was a bit of an issue for them last year. It looks like they've addressed that. Ted Roof, who you know well, Craig, from his time at Oklahoma, he is the defensive coordinator now, and we'll see. I think this is a team that, if they get on a roll, given the offensive talent they have, is going to contend deep into the year for a spot in the title game. I really do. Now I'm not sure how deep they are, but if they can keep the starters relatively healthy, then I think they're going to be all right.
I don't know much about New Hampshire. I just know some of their notable alums. UCF, I think. I just can't wait to watch what Gus Malzahn does with KJ Jefferson, not only now, but also as they progress through the season.
Respectfully to New Hampshire, here's what you need to know. They are 38.5-point underdogs. So this is expected to be a one-sided affair.
No, like 56-10 or something.
Yeah.
Chip Kelly, Ryan Day are New Hampshire alums.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
Alumni who are notable for other achievements outside of playing professional football. So that's aren't they? They're together at Ohio State.
Yeah, they are.
There
That's probably part of what the background is that made all this possible to begin with. Was the seeds that were planted or the connections there. But yeah, I'm really high on UCF. Definitely should be in the postseason. And yeah, if things fall right, they could very well be making some noise in terms of who ends up in Arlington.
Townsend, good basketball school at times against Cincinnati. That game's on the road. ESPN Plus. That is on Saturday at 1:30 Central Time.
Cincinnati's a really, what they feel like to me? They feel like West Virginia when West Virginia first entered the league. You know what I'm saying? By how they were just kind of out there by themselves and sort of felt like they were alienated in a way, and they were kind of hard to peg compared to the other schools that you were really familiar with. I feel like it's going to take some time to get to sort of know Cincinnati. And granted, the timing is also one where their last year before they entered was the greatest year imaginable. Could have been better, obviously, but making the playoff, riding as high as they were. I mean, great players like Sauce Gardner. And, then there's the change when Fickle decides to go Wisconsin, and then they changed the leagues. And so last year was a lot of change, and I don't quite know what to expect this year. Brendan Sorsby was named the starter. He's a Texas guy, so good for him. Hope he does well. But they're a really hard team to peg for me, and the only conclusion I really come to with them is I think they're finishing towards the bottom of the standings. There's just not a lot to love here, but because of that, they could very well play spoiler and be much better than me and many others are anticipating. They should. I said this in another write-up I did. I don't know how many wins they have on the schedule this year, but this is one of them. This is absolutely one of them. So Cincinnati should win, and I'm looking forward to just seeing a little bit about them because I really do not know what to expect.
Hey, Dana Holgorsen, when he was there, they won the Big East Conference, I think, the last year they were there, his first year. And you're right, when they entered the Big 12.
Wait, what?
Dana Holgorsen at you were talking about Cincinnati comparing them to West Virginia when they entered the conference. Remember, Cincinnati had that great run with Fickle, and then they kind of leveled off, and West Virginia did. They had 7-6, 4-8, but there is a comparison there until they had a 10-win season in 2016.
Yeah. And I'm talking less about their adjustment, is more so about I don't think people really know them well. Mm-hmm. We're all still kind of learning about them.
because everybody knew West Virginia because they had that explosive offense when they entered the Big 12.
But when they came into the league, though, people, they felt like the outcast. They felt that's what I'm saying, that's what Cincinnati feels like. Like, Houston's here. We know Houston. We've been around Houston.
UCF is in Orlando.
Cincinnati's just sort of, to me at least, just kind of on an island by themselves. And I think it just makes them harder to peg, for me at least, in terms of a prediction. But they will win on Saturday.
Yeah.
Paul, Townsend State?
They'll beat them. No problem.
All right. Now, the third of the pod is one of the teams that entered, including Willie Fritz, the new first-year head coach, Houston, UNLV.
This is the best game in this pod this week, as far as, how it's, it's going to be close. I mean, look, there's two really good coaches, Barry Odom and Willie Fritz. Barry Odom's got a, kind of a, maybe a little bit unknown at quarterback. I mean, unknown to the rest of the world, but he dove into the portal and got a guy who is super, super athletic. Donovan Smith is trying to to not be bad Donovan Smith anymore. Like here's the thing. He is either amazingly fun to watch or he has you going, I've got to turn this off. Like I can't watch him do this anymore. That is the thing. You've got to get more of a balance out to you where your great is still great, but your bad is like, oh, well, he took a chance, as opposed to like his great is great and his bad is awful, and that's what he needs to work out. And hopefully Willie Fritz can do that for him. I think this should be a pretty tight game, UNLV in Houston.
It's only a 2.5 points.
Yeah, it should be. This will be the best game of this pod.
Of course, Barry Odom, a friend of the show. I've had him on a couple of times this year. Craig?
Houston is the favorites there, and they are at home, but yeah, I think this will be a very tight game, and it would not surprise me one bit if UNLV won this game. I'm expecting Houston to win it, but I wouldn't be shocked. I don't think anybody would if the Rebs were able to roll in and grab a win. This will be a night game on FS1, so it's a nice spot when most of the league's going to be on ESPN+, so they actually get a good little broadcast window there. And so, I look forward to seeing what Willie Fritz can do early on. I don't think there's big expectations. I don't think there's really an assumption of anything other than this is going to take some time, and there's full confidence in the guy they've hired to be able to do that, just not right away. So how quickly can they kind of get revved up and start winning some games and maybe making some noise? Well, this would be a way to start doing that right out of the gates is beat a very respectable and good UNLV team. So this ought to be a tough one. And yeah, it is the best game in this pod in terms of a close competition, without a doubt. So Donovan Smith, a lot of hype for him rolling in. Not like crazy over the top hype, but there's just a lot of noise surrounding him. So he could very well be in for a big year. And there's obviously a lot to like about the skills and the size that he possesses.
Matthew Sluka is the quarterback he went and got from Holy Cross.
Yeah.
And Barry Odom's not naming the starter. He's not saying anything, but I'm betting it's Matthew Sluka.
I remember he put up some pretty good numbers at Holy Cross. Saw his name quite a bit.
Dual threat guy.
Yeah.
Really athletic. Really athletic.
All right, and so that's UNLV. Houston is one of the pods, and then there's also the Salukis of Southern Illinois playing at BYU. First time these two teams have ever met. That's a 7 o'clock game on a Saturday on ESPN+.
Yeah, Kalani Sitake and Aaron Roderick have let it be known, and we talked about this, I guess, earlier today, maybe a little bit, that they are not going to name the starter until Saturday, whether that's Jake Retzlaff or Gary Bohannon. Either way, feel good about BYU winning this game, although it's not one of those crazy spreads like some of the others that we've been talking about that are 30-plus point spreads where it's like, yeah, it would take craziness for this to turn on its head. They're favored by a couple touchdowns. That's still very, very comfortable. But there is no noise around BYU right now, guys. I mean, maybe it's different in Provo, but we all love Kalani Sitake, and we all have appreciated, BYU being a part of the fold just in terms of our audience and what we talk about and whatnot. But I just don't feel a lot of positive energy in terms of the expected results this year. So they tend to fall in the bottom for me in terms of the Big 12 standings. And I'm interested to see who the guy is, but I don't think that's going to be the last that we hear about the quarterback competition. I think that's something that could extend well past Saturday, if it's truly that close. But hope Gary Bohannon gets some playing time. We're big fans of his as well. BYU will win this game. I don't know that I'd peg them for the postseason. I think that it's one of those things where it's one of those things where they are going to be kind of riding that fine line, I think, but they should get a win this weekend.
They're 14-point favorites to beat Southern Illinois, the Salukis. You guys want to know about some alums from Southern Illinois?
Sure.
Jim Caldwell, football coach for a long time. Sean Watson. Charlie Strong. Bill Callahan. Ruined Nebraska football. Never have been the same. So Kalen DeBoer. He's got a pretty good little list.
I went and looked at famous New Hampshireites earlier because you said alums, and I thought, well, you're probably not going to find me alums, but there's famous people from New Hampshire, like astronaut Alan Shepard.
No kidding.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. Salukis have been a team that made it pretty deep at times in that FCS playoff, but obviously that you would think that BYU would just have too much. And I do hope Retzlaff, if he gets the starting job, fine. Great kid, too, but I would love to see Gary Bohannon. not only get a chance to play, but also have a pretty good year for a team that is not expected to be all that great.
Yeah. Sorry, I was directing Emery. I think we have more stuff that's coming into the room.
Oh, okay.
Right now,
Deliveries from our friends at Rogue.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there we go with that pod. Tomorrow, Paul's going to take care of the four corner schools.
Well,
correct?
I think, do you want to riff just for a second on those teams since you and I won't be
two
here?
of them we already talked about earlier because they're playing tonight.
Yeah. So Colorado.
Colorado. Okay,
yeah,
so that leaves us the Arizona schools. New Mexico at Arizona, still ranked in the top 25, of course, to start the year. ESPN, too. That's a 9:30 game.
Arizona should thump them.
Yeah, they should. I'm just excited to see Fafita, McMillan, the whole crew come back. Brent Brennan, though, as the new head coach, like, what does that look like, if at all that much different? Arizona's plenty confident. They should be. They got a really good team, but there is that coaching change, and that does matter. It might not make much of a difference, but I do think, at least early on, it's fair to wonder, hey, is this going to be just not skipping a beat, or is it going to be a little bit different?
Yeah, 31-point favorites. New Mexico played last week, so maybe they play at least a little sharper early on, but Arizona's got all the weapons you could imagine. Arizona State and Kenny Dillingham trying to figure it all out. They're 7-point picks, and this is a damn dangerous opening game against Wyoming.
Well, Wyoming's going to slobber knock you.
Yeah, well, we saw them beat Tech last year, and they're a team that can beat you early on in the season. And I think with Arizona State, this is the second closest spread of the games this weekend, with Houston being the only other one that's closer. So, yeah, they've got to be on their P's and Q's, and definitely don't just treat this like it's some pay game alley-oop that you're going to roll over Wyoming and then just, pop out on the other end with an easy win. That is not going to be the case here, especially when you don't anticipate the Sun Devils really being that great to begin with. Their rushing attack should be really fun. That's the highlight for them, starting with Cameron Scatabo. But, yeah, that could be a very tight game, and I want to welcome you guys all into Big 12 After Dark.
Yeah. Oh,
because
that's right.
if you look at some of these times, there's a 9:30 game, two 9:30 games, both the Arizona schools on Saturday night. So you're starting with 11 a.m. West Virginia, Penn State, and going all the way to 9:30 doubleheader with the Arizona schools.
I can't
if you're
get
a
enough
Big 12
of it.
fan.
By the way, would you like some tangential Arizona State news?
Yeah, because I got some news on Wyoming, too. But go ahead.
Tangential Arizona State news is that Arizona State alum Brandon Ayuk has signed a 4-year, $120 million extension with the 49ers. And
hey,
that little BS
that got
NFL story is over.
That got a little bit. Did you see the way John Lynch responded to a question about him yesterday or Wednesday? It got testy. All right. Wyoming, remember, first-year head coach Jay Sawvell replaces Craig Bowl, who now lives in Waco.
Yeah, and Bowl's a legend. Yeah,
and Craig Bowl was a hell of a coach at Wyoming. And Texas Tech remembers them, but they're really good. I always thought Craig Bowl would have been a great head coach at Nebraska, where he once was under Osborne as an assistant. He now lives in Waco for the American Football Coaches Association, executive director, and runs that particular business. All right, good stuff. I like the pod idea. And tomorrow, we won't be here. Craig and I won't be here. That's why we went ahead and jumped into pod 4. Next week and all the other weeks, we'll start pods 1, 3, 4, 2, whatever, on Mondays through Thursday as part of what we do. When we come back, Paul Catalina at his top 5.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hello. Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. There's an auction going on right now that Jack and I are currently not winning in, but we're going to try. We're going to try by the end of this thing to get it. And use our promo code 365sports for 25% off your order at bitonbeef.com. Today, top 5 assistant coaches to watch. These are people who are on the way up. I'm going to start with one who is near and dear to my heart, but he does not coach at the place that he became near and dear to my heart. Heisman Trophy winner Chris Winkie is the quarterback coach at Georgia Tech. Garrett, what would you say on a scale of 1 to 10 the job he has done with Haynes King and recitating his career?
It's at least an 8. At least an 8.
Yeah. He's a really good quarterback coach. He's probably going to be a play caller soon. Would not be surprised to see him move up here in the coming years. If you look at what Haynes King has done the last season and look like what he's going to do this year, he has put some moxie in that kid for sure, or rediscovered the moxie, because we saw Haynes King in high school. He certainly had it, and he's got his groove back due in large part to Chris Winkie. Number 4, Austin Armstrong, defensive coordinator at Florida. Here's what I do like about Austin Armstrong. He's very young. Nothing about this guy says defensive coordinator, right? Not at all. But he's one of the best in the country. He's in his early 30s. He's young. I don't know if head coach is in his immediate future, but Billy Napier made a great hire with Austin Armstrong. Florida's defense actually in the last couple years has not been all that problematic. Their offense has been so chaotic, and eventually you'll see games where the defense just has no more fight because the offense has struggled. But Austin Armstrong, one of the better defensive minds in the country, young guy on his way up. Not sure if he's quite head coach ready yet, but he will keep getting opportunities because he is one of the better young coaches in the country. And watch Florida's defense. They'll probably be pretty good all year long. I don't think this is a team that's going to get blown out a lot. I think this is a team that's probably going to lose more than they want to because of their schedule, but I think they'll hang in with most teams. And that's all the nice things I can say about that for right now. Glenn Schumann, defensive coordinator at Georgia. This one should be a no-brainer. This is the best young defensive coordinator in the country by far. He's going to be a head coach soon. He follows in the footsteps of Dan Lanning. He was interviewed by the Eagles this year, who basically drafted all of his players off the defense and have them there now. So that's why they wanted to bring him in. So we'll see what Glenn Schumann has in his future coming up. But I would be willing to bet this is his last season at Georgia, and he's going to be a head coach next year. Number 2, Ben Arbuckle, offensive coordinator at Wazoo. Another guy, young guy like Austin Armstrong. I would not be surprised to see him in the Power 2 next year. And I mean Power 2 like SEC and Big Ten, or Power 4. But he's got a really good offense. He coached Cam Ward. I think that you'll see him take one more OC job before he gets a head coach job, or if he doesn't do that next year, he'll be coaching at a place like Texas State if G.J. Kenny leaves, something like that. Ben Arbuckle, really good young coach. And number 1, Will Stein, OC at Oregon. I'm also willing to bet this is his last year at Oregon. I think somebody's going to make him a head coach next year for sure. And the place I think it might be is, let's just say Jeff Traylor gets a job. He might go back to from whence he came at UTSA. But these last 2 guys, Glenn Schumann's going to get a bigger job. Glenn Schumann's going to get an SEC job or a Big Ten job or somewhere like that. Will Stein and Arbuckle, they'll be in the G5 as head coaches first, but probably not long before they are P4 head coaches for sure. So that is our top 5 assistant coaches to watch. We're back to wrap it up right now.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. We will have 365 Sports tonight at 10:30 tonight on the local CW. And if you haven't said goodbye to us on the YouTube channel 365 Sports, hit the like button if you don't mind and subscribe. We appreciate everybody. And don't forget you have the option of watching us also on 365 app and on 365 Sports on Twitter at 365 Sports YT. So all different ways of getting us in different angles. Thanks to Emery Winter. Appreciate you, Emery, dialing up 365 Sports, in fact, for the show tonight at 10:30. Garrett Ross, thank you. Also, Jack McKenzie. Go ahead. I heard you getting ready to say something. Okay, I'm sorry. Jack McKenzie, thank you as well. Paul Catalina, enjoy tomorrow. We'll be playing high school football games tomorrow night. Craig Smoak will join me along with others for Midway and Conley, for everybody, our sponsors, for you, the audience and listeners, good night on 365 Sports.